sort of your backstory and that. Well, thank you first, by the way, for coming on, because
thank you.
it's rare that I get someone like you. Do you know what I mean? Who actually, I've said to you before, and I'll say it again. You're not an armchair activist. Do you know what I mean? You're actually out there. You've been to places that I'll probably never see. You founded the Jersey Palestine Solidarity Campaign. What year was that? Because I haven't actually written it down.
2015.
2015. And travelled to Palestine as a humanitarian witness.
Yeah, in 2018. Human Rights Monitor.
Human Rights Monitor, right. Just go back, and then we'll start from how you got involved in activism.
Go back to the beginning?
Yeah. We've got all the time in the world.
Fantastic, okay. I guess my interest, it'd probably be good to start with my interest in human rights, I suppose, which was probably when I was young. I remember at school, when I was at Holia, we used to have do you remember they used to do the letter writing campaigns for Amnesty?
I don't think so.
It's for political prisoners. There used to be a big thing at Christmas, but they used to have them all throughout the year.
It rings a bell, but I don't think I was ever part of that. I don't think they've done it at Le Chêne,
Maybe not. Although they probably should have done, to be
fair. More than likely, yeah.
So they used to do these letter writing campaigns. So you could write a letter to somebody who was being held as a political prisoner, or prisoner of conscience, they used to call them. And that's probably when I first started doing stuff. I think my awareness came much younger, actually, because I think I've always been interested in human rights, one, because of my own journey in life and kind of the journey that my family went through. I suppose made me realise that not everybody's rights were respected. Yeah. But as I got older, I think my mum used to speak now and again. It's one of the things I'm really grateful to her about, is she used to talk just little bits about what was happening in different countries and what happened to the indigenous peoples of different sort of, continents and stuff like that. So that's when I first, I think, became aware of stuff, and then I read, obviously, A Diary of Anne Frank and things like that. And
it's all while you were at school?
Yeah. So, when I was at school. And then, when I left school, I started doing little bits and pieces, carried on writing letters or signing petitions, but nothing really big, although I did protest once. I remember it's over here. It was me and my mate protest at animal circus.
What's that
for? It came over, I can't remember, it was some animal circus, and I remember, we were up at St. Peter's, I reckon it was where the Jersey Bowl is.
Yeah.
And it was just me and her standing beside.
Have you got any pictures
probably
of
be
that?
about no. But so that was my little stand when I was a teenager.
So that was the first time you knew?
The first time I knew that I was willing to take a stand.
Yeah.
And then I kind of went on a bit of a religious route for a while. But actually, that was also motivated by, I suppose, a desire for, wanting the world to change, really. And that was just the route that I took for that,
That's the basis of most religions, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I think that when I decided to return to Jersey, because I lived in London for 8 years, and I sort of worked with asylum seekers over there and stuff like that. And again, I started trying to support in that way. But my real activism started once I returned to Jersey. At first, I was kind of trying to decide how I was going to do that, what I was going to do, and then I realised that an amnesty group existed in Jersey. And then this was in 2014, actually, was when I really decided I wanted to do something. So I phoned up Amnesty, and in a conversation with them, with the guy, I asked if they were going, so I said I was interested in joining them, when did they have their groups and this, that and the other, and I asked them whether they're going to do anything about Protective Edge. Do you remember the bombardment?
Yeah.
Israel's bombardment.
Yeah.
So it had a huge amount of coverage, and obviously public opinion, there's a huge number of people turned to support Palestine at that time, because it was so clear that it was just so disproportionate. It was just absolutely horrendous, with children being in freezers and stuff like that. So I contacted Amnesty, asked them if they're going to do anything, and the guy turned around and said, well, there were two sides to every story. And I was thinking, if you think there are two sides to a civilian population being totally destroyed.
How can that happen? Aren't they supposed to be impartial on...
Well, absolutely. Well, there's supposed to be some... Amnesty released several statements about the situation. So he was actually going against... And it was clear from his conversation that he was anti-Palestinian. And this was the secretary of Amnesty Jersey. And I just went, do you know what, actually... I'm not... He made the decision for me just to focus on Palestine. Because I thought, if people are not willing to take this up, then I would.
So that's kind of crazy. Someone at Amnesty International around in Jersey, around the time that there was... What was going on at the time? Project, what's it called?
Protective Edge.
Protective Edge.
Operation Protective Edge, yeah.
Can you just walk through what that was exactly?
Yeah, so basically Protective Edge was one... So there's been 3 major bombardments.
Yeah.
There's been obviously periodic bombardments of Palestine, well, of Gaza, of the Gaza Strip, which is part of the Palestinian territories. And this was like the third on Protective Edge, which was in 2014.
Right.
So basically the normal thing, you know, often people don't realise that there's stuff happening in between, but, you know, Hamas started firing rockets. You know, they don't have an army, they have rudimentary rockets, so they fired some rockets. There's other stuff that kind of went on in the background, but the main reason for the bombardment, I suppose, is Hamas kind of sent some rockets out, and then Israel disproportionately bombarded them. But they've been under an illegal siege since the last elections, which I think were like 12 years ago, I think, maybe.
So would this be considered in 2014 or the third Intifada, or?
No, so this was just an uprising. Well, not even an uprising. This was in Gaza. So you have the Palestinian territories, which obviously consist of the West Bank, and then you have the Gaza Strip. So that's what's considered the Palestinian occupied territories.
Right.
You know, and Jerusalem, which often gets, East Jerusalem often gets forgotten. So it was like, so they've been under an illegal blockade for well over a decade now. Mm-hmm. And as with anything, any of us who are blockaded will end up resisting that blockade because they stop.
Boiling pot. It's going to happen.
Exactly, because they're not allowing concrete through or medicine or all sorts of other things. You know, there's only so long that people are going to take it. Yeah. You know, any one of us would. You know, so obviously that caused issues, but with the bombardments, you had like. It was so disproportionate that, like, I mean, children, there were 3 kids playing football on the beach that Israeli bombs, I think it was bombs or snipers killed them, but took them out playing football. It was clear as day they were playing football. So
I'm assuming that international pressure was on Israel at that time?
Or to some degree, obviously, because the coverage is so... We only ever, in mainstream media, we only hear one narrative, which is the Israeli narrative. However, it was that bad... I think for the first time, a number of people were pushing and highlighting. Even Jon Snow of Channel 4 came out and spoke in really quite clear terms about what was going on. You had Jeremy Bowen, who actually got removed from Gaza, reporting on Gaza.
Was another time that Tony Benn gave the number on BBC News? Or was that for Syria? I can't remember which one. But what I'm saying is, so around that time...
Oh, yeah, there was an advert for Gaza, and it got taken off.
Yeah, and then Tony Benn, I'm sure it was Tony Benn.
May have been. He was a good man. He probably would.
He sat on the BBC and he gave a number out in the P.O. box to send money. I can't remember, don't quote me on that. But so around that time, the person who represents Amnesty International over here said there's 2 sides to every story. When you wanted to start something in relation to Palestine,
what I'd asked is, the reason why I started something exclusively about Palestine was because of him. Mm-hmm. I said, are you going to do anything about Gaza?
Yeah.
Because of what was happening. And he said no, because there were 2 sides to every story. And then basically his rhetoric was anti-Palestinian.
What's his name?
Keith Pershard.
Is he still there?
Yeah.
Right.
So, and also he's posted like Israel is really cool propaganda online. I've complained on 2 occasions to Amnesty International in the UK for him putting up, because it goes against their own...
Yeah, because you can't be biased if you're part of that organisation.
Yeah, you're framing, your lens through which you see everything is international humanitarian law.
Which
That's
doesn't
the whole
see
point
borders.
Of Amnesty.
It doesn't see borders, it doesn't see countries.
Yeah, exactly.
If you see it through their lenses.
It's about who is doing...
It's justice.
Yeah, it's about justice. Who is violating people's human rights, and that's it. So his was clearly... you know,
biased.
Yeah, exactly. But so he was really the catalyst for me saying, right, if they won't touch Palestine, and there was a reluctance to, I thought, well, I'm going to do it, and that's why I decided to set up a group. I mean, the reason why, I suppose, you know, for many years I didn't know much about Palestine and Israel. You know, all I knew is that, you know, what people used to say, it was complicated. I thought it was about religion. I didn't realise it was about colonisation or settler colonialism. I didn't realise any of that until my first proper boyfriend is Jewish. He had family in Israel. I mean, he doesn't have a particular opinion, but I only ever heard one side of it. So I thought, oh, it's all complicated. I'm just not going to look at that mess.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on, because you can unpack it, you know, and simplify it and make it easily digestible. Do you know what I mean? Whereas even I'm guilty of that as well. Years ago when I tried to look into it, and then, you know, you end up looking at both sides and thinking, hang on a minute, it is a mess, because neither side's backing down. They both claim that that's their land. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you throw religion, you throw politics, and then you throw the amount of death that's gone on top of that. It might be Western arrogance. I'm probably guilty of it as well. But you'd stand there and go, that's just, how can I unravel that? So, like...
Exactly. It seems like, you know, it's
a hotbed of mess. It just, you know, on both sides.
And it looks like that when you first look at it. And I think the thing is that you can see why Israel has made it about religion. Yeah. Because it muddies the waters. Because the moment you go religion, a lot of people go, actually, do you know what? I had enough of religions arguing with one another, fighting, and it becomes about that.
And when it's not your religion, you take even further step back.
Yeah,
exactly. You don't understand it.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and I think, obviously, you know, the reason why Israel has had so much support, or people were unwilling in the past to criticise Israel, is because of European guilt for the Holocaust. And you know, the government should have a degree of guilt for what they enabled, you know. But it's a whole different thing. The issue with Palestine actually was an issue that started really in the late 1800s with Theodor Herzl, who was the guy who really pushed for a state for Jews. So you had, and actually there was a bit of a differing opinion at that time, because you had many Jews were fighting, quite rightly so, for equality and a life of dignity within the countries that they were born, as should be the right of any one of us, no matter what religion.
Because that was just after the Ottoman Empire, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's
it. So you had this, and then you had the Bunds, who are a really progressive socialist movement. Actually, I know that because we had Glyn Secker came over. Glyn was the captain of the Jewish boat for Gaza a number of years ago. I think it was when the Mamavi Marmara was attacked. I can't remember. I'm not 100%
the flotilla?
Sure. Yeah. That's one of the freedom flotillas. And so that's how I learned about the Bunds. So you had that, and actually not many people supported Zionism, because Jews quite rightly said, we want rights within the country that we're born, and actually they're European. That's what their ethnicity is European. Yeah. But Theodor Herzl, and I can understand to some degree why Zionism became a movement, because, you know, it's beyond question that Jews, as travellers and gypsies, have suffered centuries of persecution. There is
all the way back from Egypt.
From years and years and years. So there's no question about that. But I suppose it was just a difference in how do we address this
how do you implement it without killing other people or what's the word? It's you, isn't it?
It's me.
It is you. Displacing.
Displacing
let me
others. So I think...
without displacing, you know, millions of people,
Exactly. So what happened was they actually looked at a couple of other places, and then they decided on Palestine because of the religious connection to the area. Right. Of 2,000 years ago. Yeah. And that's why they settled on there. So you had like so obviously Palestine at that point for a while in the late 1800s still under the Ottoman Empire, and therefore they had different rules which meant people could buy up the land if somebody was missing at that point in time, and that's how the Zionists started colonising the land.
But isn't that a problem where we have to separate Zionism, which is a movement, from Judaism, which is a religion?
Yeah, so you have a religion. Some would say ethnicity. I don't really know what I think about that.
The definition being,
Judaism should be a religion.
Yeah, it's separated from... so Zionism is a movement for the re-establishment, development and protection of Jewish people in what is now Israel, right? Established in 1897, under Theodore Herzl, Then Chaim Weizmann?
Yeah, he was one of the guys that was kind of involved in that.
But again, it's a movement.
Yeah, so it's a movement. So it's a political movement. The belief that Jews could only ever be safe if they had their own.
What happened to the separation of church and state?
Yeah, well, that's a different thing. But they saw, that's what they decided needed to be done. So there wasn't actually much support for it in the beginning. There started being issues because I think the Palestinians, if you read some of the history of that time, it shows some of the Palestinians began to recognise what it could mean, that basically it was colonisation of their land, and if people want to understand why that's an issue, it'd be like the Romans coming and claiming Jersey because 2,000 years ago they had a presence here. Yeah. It's a nonsense argument to make, or Vikings saying, in the UK, it's
probably be better, to be honest, if Vikings came back.
Maybe it'd be him on that.
Wasn't it after the British mandate for Palestine? Wasn't that when they
So that was after the First World War.
That's it, yeah. And wasn't that after? So they had the British mandate for Palestine, where British troops basically occupied it. Yeah. And then they sort of threw their hands up after that and went, "It's your problem now."
Yes. Well, what happened was, so you had after the First World War, the Middle East was carved up into different colonies.
It was
so
France. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Britain got Palestine. It became the British Mandate of Palestine, and then what happened was in when was it 1918? I think it was 1918. You had Rothschild. A letter was written to Rothschild. This is where I went wrong last time. Do you know what? This is shocking. I can't believe
don't worry,
it.
I can cut it. I can cut it. I can cut it. Don't worry.
Every single time, and I know this.
I think it's me and you are cursed.
Rothschilds. I can't remember who it was. Who the guy was who wrote the letter.
I think I've got it because that's the.
Please Google it for me. Or Ecosia it. That's what it's better for.
No, that's not it.
Balfour Agreement. It's fine. Right. So yeah. So what happened was a letter was written by Lord Balfour, who basically gifted away Palestine, which had its own population, indigenous population, to the Zionist project.
Right.
However, one part of what's interesting is that it was to be without having any impact really on the indigenous peoples.
Yeah, that was written in stone.
Yes, so that was Lord Balfour basically gave away Palestine to a European political group really. And then what happened was after that, again, there wasn't much support for the state. There was obviously British support and, and a lot of, I suppose, the Western powers. And actually a lot of it was fuelled actually by anti-Semitism because people just wanted the Jews out. Some of these people wanted the Jews out of their country, which is horrendous. And that's why the support was there. But the time when Zionism really started becoming mainstream, and you can perhaps understand, is after the Holocaust. World War II, because of the Holocaust, which was so horrendous. Yeah. So you had lots of mass immigration to what was still Palestine, the British Mandate of Palestine. But then what happened during that period is obviously the Zionists, who had already had a movement there and a colony there, started becoming more extreme. They wanted the Palestinians out basically. And if you look at the letters originally, Ben Gurion wrote that they would have to expel them. It was very clear what they wanted to do. It was always going to be about ethnic cleansing. He was quite open about that they'd have to expel them, because they wanted the lands basically for themselves. It's no different to when Europeans went to the Americas when it was still under Native Americans. Yeah. They don't want the indigenous population; they want them out. To some degree, use them for certain things if they need. So that was what was that's when really Zionist project really took off and got lots of support. But of course,
and around that time it was understandable because there was worldwide sympathy under
absolutely, and people were terrified. And
obviously for what just happened with Hitler,
of course, and that's not they tried to exterminate them like they did gypsies and any other group that they decided were undesirable. But of course, what it led to in 1948 was the mass expulsion of Palestinians from their lands. Over 500 villages were completely razed. There were just massacres.
Because then they were displaced to Jordan and Egypt.
And still act as refugees now with no rights often.
Yeah.
They're people without land anymore. So that's kind of where sort of the situation started. So people can say it's about religion, but it's not. It's about settler colonialism.
It wrapped into religion, which is normally what happens, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a banner that's that's
it's been used throughout history.
Exactly, and people forget you had Palestinian Jews, you had Palestinian Christians, you had Palestinian Muslims. So to try and pretend it's about...
I was going to say under the Ottoman Empire, you had everyone living under one, like Catholics, Jews.
Yeah, and they were all fine.
Yeah.
Actually, if you go back further into the Ottoman history, it was the only jurisdiction that Jews had equal rights. Interesting. Lots of Jews actually emigrated to the Ottoman Empire.
Isn't that weird that when politics gets involved, it all gets worse?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So that's kind of gives you a little bit of history of kind of how it was formed and obviously why there are issues around that. So after that you had Israel, decided, announced its independence. Prior to that, I don't know if you're aware, but there was lots of terror attacks by the Zionist militia groups like the Stern Gang and the Irgun, and they blew up the King David Hotel. They hung British troops, and so Britain was losing a lot of enthusiasm being there.
Around that time, it was Britain was being attacked by both sides because both sides seen it as their land and seen them as the occupying force, which they essentially were.
Yeah.
So both of them were fighting the British for the piece of land. So in the end, Britain just turned around and went, I'm off.
I think because after obviously the war effort, they lost so much money and took such a pounding.
Yeah.
And obviously that's when really British Empire began to lose a lot of its power, and American went on the
So they didn't have time to work out the problems in the Middle East. They just went home.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it was, I think they thought, well, we've got nothing more to get out of here. And actually, now a European colony has been established here. And this is the thing, when people say, well, they both have a claim to their land. Really? Would we accept the Romans having a claim to Jersey now, 2,000 years on?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make it... Yeah, when you put it like that, obviously it doesn't make much sense. But again, it's religion wrapped in everything else.
Yeah.
And both are staking claim to the land, and neither side I can't say that I've got a solution because I'd be arrogant to say that I do or ignorant. But at the same time, I think, like I said just before, if everyone seemed to be getting along, like 50 religions lived under the Ottoman Empire, it just seems that as soon as,
1948.
Yeah,
well, the late 1800s was when 1807.
And then, but the Ottoman Empire, early 1900s.
Yeah, it failed really towards in the First World War. Really,
well, the first attempt of a settlement was 1968, wasn't it?
That was in Hebron.
That's it, when they took over the hotel.
Yeah.
So in the spring of 1968, a rabbi and a group of Israelis.
They were on holiday there and then refused to leave.
Yeah, posing as Swiss tourists.
That's right. Yeah.
Rented the main hotel in Hebron and refused to leave. Most of the early funding towards such settlements was given by a group called Movement for a Greater Israel.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, and I think what is important to remember is that, obviously, the UN had suggested, like, a partition plan. Mm-hmm. Which was rejected by the Palestinians, understandably so, because 55% was going to be given to the new Zionist colony, which only made up, I think, comprised 12% of the population, and they were going to get 55%, and of course the good land.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, Palestinians rejected it. Well, how many of us would, bearing in mind we were occupied, how many of us would have accepted 55% of our islands being given to you know, the families of the people who were occupying us.
I've always found that a little bit ironic, the fact that there's not more understanding, seeing as though we're the last place to be occupied.
Yeah.
I've always found that weird. But then, again, I have to ask you questions because you're going to have to educate me to unravel this, because obviously I'm not as bright as the next person.
It's not that, it's just about knowledge.
No, it's just because it does go back, and it's so intertwined with everything that's happened, and again, because there's other things that happen around the world around that time, the attention shifts in different ways, and then sometimes, you know, you can see as to why people were sympathetic towards the Jewish plea, and you know,
I don't think there's any question as to why people would be sympathetic towards the Jews wanting somewhere to feel safe. I don't think anyone could argue that wouldn't be a reasonable thing that they would want. I think the issue is about how it's done and what has happened since then.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the problem, isn't it? You know, any one of us would want to feel safe, I don't think.
Well, now that we've covered that brief history, because we can go back into that in a second, when did you first start?
The group.
The group, yeah.
Yeah, so...
And how did that come along?
Okay, so obviously, like I said, Amnesty Jersey in 2014.
Was a joke and still is.
Yeah, so I was like, fine, if you're not willing to take that up, then I will.
Mm-hmm.
And also because what I recognise is that there was a real reluctance for people to speak out in support of Palestinians because of the attacks that you would get, the labels, I mean, we'll talk about that later, but obviously the claims of anti-Semitism. And I just thought, actually, that's wrong. Me having not known much and then having one view of it, and then began to realise, basically because a lady that I worked with is married to a Palestinian, and I heard her having conversations on the phone to her husband about her mother-in-law having issues getting through checkpoints, and that was what I was like, oh, what's that about? I didn't know that. And that was really what started me looking into the situation and realising that the narrative I had been sold wasn't actually accurate and only really gave one very biased perspective on it. So I decided to take the cause up, and what happened was in 2015, this is when I decided that I was going to do that, although I did go to a march against the Gaza. No, in London. I went to, I snuck out of a hen party, actually. So what happened was I went to, a good friend of mine had a hen party in London. I went there, I knew there was a march. So I snuck out of a hen party to go to the march and to the protest, and then snuck back in and got ready for the evening.
Did she ever find out?
I'm not unless she listens to this.
There you go. She's gonna be fucking fuming. Don't apologise. It's for better things.
Yeah. So So then in 2015, what happened was I didn't know how to set up a group because it's not like I'd done that before. But what I remembered is that Sam Mezek, I had seen at one point, had asked a question in our local parliament about Palestine. I can't remember what it was in connection with. And I thought, I need to find, it may have been in connection with Protective Edge, possibly. But I thought, I need to find this guy. So I kept tweeting him, I think it was, or sending him messages. And I think it must have been tweets. And he never, in the end, he responded. At first, he wasn't responding, probably wondering, who is this lunatic? And then I found out he was going to the protest for the finance centre, which I was going to go to anyway, down at the waterfront.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so basically, I went down there and walked all around the protest until I found him.
Right.
And then he agreed to meet me for a coffee. And when I said what I wanted to do, it turned out he'd already put up a page in support of Palestine, a Facebook page. So we went for a coffee, and then he agreed to kind of help me. So obviously, because he was able to put out a press release, and it meant it would get coverage.
Was he? He was serving at that time. He was a
deputy.
Deputy, that's it.
Yeah. So we had so it was advertised. Obviously, he got attacked. We got attacked. But we had our first meeting at the town hall. And there we were thinking, wow, this is a great number of people turning up. There's like 45 people turning up for a meeting in Palestine. Never realised that there would be that much support. Turned out that like 25 of them were Zionists who came in, disrupted the meeting, started screaming at us, wrapping Israeli flags around themselves, screaming in our faces. It was just totally crazy. My husband Like Carl, who's like 6'2" and really, you know, he was just like standing there, not knowing. He kept saying, "Oh, should we go? Should I go? Should I go?" And I was just like, I had this woman screaming in my face, and poor Carl. I was like, "Just stop, Carl. I'm trying to deal with this at the moment." However, the positive was that we did meet 15 other people that were genuinely interested.
That weren't there to
scream at us. Yeah. So we organised a meeting a couple of weeks later, and then set up. And because I was a member already of Palestine Solidarity Campaign, I suggested we affiliate with them, because obviously it gives you a bit of protection, access to resources and stuff. So it was 2015, and then the first things, we did different things, like we had like a memorial for the victims of the Protective Edge. We sort of did little bits and pieces. We started setting up a stall in town. But then the first speaker we ever got was someone who I connected with via Facebook, the wonders of social media, which was Iyad Bernat, who features in 5 Broken Cameras, which is a Oscar-winning documentary. So it was his brother, actually, who filmed the documentary, but he's actually in it. So we had Iyad Bernat came and gave a talk, which we organised at the Arts Centre. Had no idea how many people would turn up. And
was that a good
so we
turnout?
only booked a little room. Huh?
Was that a good turnout?
It was amazing. Like, people were sitting in the corridor, and it was just and this was what was incredible, actually, was there was a lot of interest in it. So that was the first one, and I started saying I want to bring Miko Peled over, because Miko Peled is his grandfather was a signatory to the Declaration of Independence of Israel. His father was a general in the 1967 conflict, which was when you had the West Bank was taken over, and that's when the occupation started of, you know, of what's considered the Palestinian territories now. And he was a Red Beret in the army, and it was during that journey. He's written a book called The General's Son, A Journey of an Israeli Through Palestine. Really interesting book. And also his niece was the victim of a suicide bomber when she was 14. Right. And what was really interesting, and the insight that his sister had, and I'm not sure I would have had that, was after she died, you know, Netanyahu turned up, because I knew, like, Netanyahu and stuff, they were this very high-profile Zionist family, Miko's family. But Netanyahu turned up, and his sister turned around and said, "Don't you dare come here, you're responsible for this," which is amazing. She recognised that what had happened was a consequence of Israeli policy. And I thought, imagine to have that compassion and insight at a time when I can't imagine what it must be like to lose a child, you know. So I wanted to bring him over because I thought it's important to actually have an Israeli speak as well, because it shows I'm not, you know, and I never have been, I'm not anti anyone, I'm anti the violation of human rights.
Well, there's thousands of Jewish people who are against the occupation.
Of course, and that's the thing, and they get shut down all the time and targeted all the time. So we did a fundraiser, and then Miko came over, and that was it really. That was kind of how we started, launched, and all the rest of it.
So how did it end up with obviously yourself being in Palestine, and what was the process like getting there? Okay,
so I visited Palestine first in 2016 because I wanted to go and see, I wanted to be a first-hand witness really. He had invited any one of us in a group who wanted to go.
Right.
So I decided that I would go. I did. I spent some time in Bil'in, which is quite famous and highlighted, like I said, in 5 Broken Cameras. I went to Hebron. That's when I first met Issa. I'd been in touch with Issa from 2015, though, so we started communicating because we did an open shuhada thing in 2016 for him in the March time, and then I kind of did a little bit of a tour really of the area just to kind of get some insight. And then what happened was in 2017, I think it was like January time. EAPPI, who I served as a human rights monitor with, they advertise every year for, I can't remember how many it is they send now. I've got 15 in my head, I don't know if it's 15. But from islands and the British Isles, they send, 15 over in different groups each, I think it's like 4 different or 5 different periods you can go to go over and serve as a human rights monitor for 3 months. So I sat down with my husband, Carl, long-suffering Carl, and asked him whether he would mind me applying. I just said to him, because I was just really passionate about it after having, I think it's something else. One, you can see that, you can know it's unjust and read it, but when you've seen it, it does something to you. It's totally different to feel it and to smell it and it did something to me. So Carl was actually very supportive and said, yes, it will apply. I don't know what you thought, what might happen, And actually on paper, I didn't think I had much of a chance because of what they were asking for, but,
Because you have to go through psychological tests and stuff.
Well, they do so what happened, not so much, it's kind of, they check where you're at, basically.
Yeah,
so
because you can't exactly go in there, hating the world or, having a certain bias.
Yeah, exactly. They have to know you're stable and you're going to be sensible, because the impact, of having someone unstable there in terms of them even being allowed to go in the first place. Although saying that, Israel won't let you in if they know you're there for human rights. People get turned away all the time. You get stopped at the border. They ask you all these questions, yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you about that in a little bit, about what's happened to people since. But loads of people have been turned away, including rabbis, who they know support Palestinian rights. They get turned away. Like Jewish Voice for Peace had a delegation that went there, mainly of Jewish people, and they turned them away, wouldn't allow them in. Because Israel they don't want their crimes to be exposed, basically.
Yeah.
So I applied. It's quite a lengthy process, because obviously you have an application form. You've got to have a number of references you have to get from different people, and it's quite it's very detailed, the application. So you send that off, and I didn't know what to think. Sent it off, and then I got invited for an interview. So it was, you do like a presentation, you have like an hour-long interview, and then you do these team exercises, and basically you're surrounded by people with clipboards as you go through these. Like, they give you different scenarios, and you have to agree with the people that are there with you how you're going to respond to these different scenarios that you're likely to face when you're out there. And then so I got offered a conditional place, but it's conditional until you've completed your 2 weeks training. And so you do like a week in London and a week at the Quaker Centre in Birmingham. It's called Woodbrook. And yeah, you get asked you have to be very open. They ask you very, very personal questions. And
so this isn't like you jumped on a plane,
no,
went to Palestine and said,
I'm here.
So it's a long, lengthy process where you have to visit a lot of professionals.
It was a year.
Along the way. So 12 months out of your life to not even know that you're going to get there in the end. Yeah. To see a bunch of professionals along the way.
Yeah.
To ensure that you're
study. They give you a whole study list of books you've got to read, like UN, EU reports you've got to read, and all the rest of it. So. Yeah.
So it's not like, again, jumping on a plane and going over there and going, yeah, I'm here. It's
So there's a lot of training for it, and then so then I obviously got offered. So I was confirmed after my training, and then you won't find out. So you put in they ask you where you'd rather be placed, and I put down Hebron as my first choice, and I think I put Bethlehem maybe as my second, but I put Hebron, and I found out 2 weeks before I went that I was going to be based in Hebron. I didn't have any idea where I was going to be up until 2 weeks before.
Right.
So then I went through the whole thing of making sure that, because then you one of the things you do is get trained how you go through security. So like I said, you can get turned away, and there's a number of people. The
checkpoints and stuff like that?
No, just security at the airport.
Oh, right.
So they ask you questions, they ask you why you're there, they check stuff, they look you up quite often.
I've seen a couple of videos and heard some recordings of the way they treat people.
Yeah. It's full on.
Yeah.
I've been to different places. I mean, not loads of places, but bearing in mind, you're told it's a liberal democracy.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But it is. So I went in, and you wouldn't have known me. I looked like a proper Stepford wife. I had this really pretty dress on. I had my nails done. I had my makeup done at the airport. Anything that would make me look like a good Christian woman. It was just turning up just because they wanted to go and, see the land of Jesus. And yeah, I was very nervous going through security the second time, particularly because of why I knew I was there and I was going to be there for a while. But actually I was all right, surprisingly. But do you know what I've learned? Actually, I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast just in case someone watches it.
Say whatever.
I've learned when you're in the security, when you're looking, which one you look for, the young guy who looks bored. You never go through a female channel because they're too diligent in what they do. You look for the young guy who looks bored, he wishes he was somewhere else.
Does that go for you over here as well?
Well, I don't know, that's a top tip, Rudo. So, by some miracle, I didn't get asked a single question, which is unusual because you always get asked something. I got asked nothing. He looked at me, and he looked at me for quite a while, and I just looked at him, and I just kind of smiled, and I was shaking inside, but I was like kind of smiled, and he looked down, he looked at me again, and it felt like a lifetime, and then he just stamped my passport, gave me my visa, and just said I could go through.
Yeah, that happened to me.
When I went through, I was like this. Once I came.
That happened to me in Cuba. I literally got off the plane. They lined. Obviously, it's a massive plane with hundreds of people, lined up 2 lines like that, and everyone's standing there. It's like hot and just different heat, Caribbean heat. Not used to it. Standing there like that, and this woman walked past, double checked me, went past, checked me again, and went, "You over here." And I was like, "Oh, you're right," not thinking any of it. And then she was like, "You go over there," and I was walking through because I was one of the last off the plane. Walking through, and I was just looking at everyone looking at me walking through the thing, and they just opened a new checkpoint. And he stand there and he opened my thing, and he was like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Plasterer," and he was like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Fucking holiday," you know what I mean? And then just after a long stare, just let me through, and I was like, "That was fucking weird," you know what I mean?
No, it is strange when you're, especially because you're thinking, because you start feeling guilty.
But in your position, that's a totally different kettle of fish.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
because they can I've got friends who've been deported, but before they were deported, they were held in a cell for 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, so then I got in, and obviously I went to. So what happened was you did a week's training in Jerusalem. So that's just getting you used to there, and you get basic language lessons and stuff like that. You get to know a little bit more about the situation. You get different Israeli groups come and speak to you.
So you stay with Jewish people before you actually.
So we stayed with the crumbs, I can't remember what it's called now. It's like a Christian thing. So basically, it's probably good to say a little bit what EAPPI is. So EAPPI is cool. It stands for Ecumenical Accompaniment Program Palestine and Israel. So it was set up by the World Council of Churches. You don't have to be religious to do it. Mm-hmm. But the reason why they set it up, in the UK it's run by an island, it's run by the Quakers, because they have experience of doing similarly in apartheid South Africa. Right. So that's why they have a history of doing this. And obviously the Quakers have always been quite radical. If you look through their history, they were the first to stand up against the slave trade and all sorts of stuff like that.
So the entire organisation is coming from a genuine perspective.
Yeah. But different countries will have, so I think it's something like 22 different countries that take part. Mm-hmm. And so in different countries it'll be run by different churches. It's just Quakers happen to be the one in the UK and Ireland. So they set it up, but the reason is because after the Second Intifada, the Palestinians, so that was 2002 I think, the Palestinians had asked for a UN peacekeeping troop to come in to protect them, because obviously Israel was so brutal. We only ever hear about the suicide bombs, but we don't ever hear what preceded that. Just so I
can clarify for people watching, Intifada basically means civil uprising.
Civil uprising.
The first Intifada was against these occupied territories in 1987 to 1993. Yeah. And the second one that you're speaking of now is 2000 to 2005.
Yeah. So basically, after the Second Intifada, the Palestinians asked for a UN peacekeeping troop, which got vetoed, obviously, by America, which they can do, and they always do. So what happened was the Palestinian heads of the Palestinian churches asked the World Council of Churches to support them and send in human rights monitors, basically, because they wouldn't allow the UN to do anything. And that's basically how EAPPI was formed. So then you go there and you all get mixed up. So you get mixed up on according to gender, age, nationality, and all the rest of it. So I ended up in Hebron, and there was 4 of us. So I had my roommate Rami. Well, his actual name is Iro, but Iro in Arabic means dick. So Issa, one of the first things Issa said was no, we're not calling you that. We're going to have to call you something else, which is when we went with Rami, because Rami is both Finnish, which is where he comes from, and Arabic. So we had Rami. And then Milena, who's originally from Denmark, but lives in Berlin, and Christina, who's from Norway. So we had a proper, Nordic country.
Yeah.
I was the foreigner amongst them. So then we went together. So you do a couple of sort of like team building exercises before you go, because ultimately you never met these people before. You're all mixed up.
Yeah, and you're going into dangerous territory. Basically, it's a war zone. Whether
Yeah, exactly. So that was that. So we went into and then served for 3 months.
3 months altogether.
Yeah.
Is there like so you went straight into Hebron?
Yeah, so I did a week in Jerusalem,
right,
and then Hebron, and then you have like a 5-day in the middle, what's called the midterm orientation, which is when you go to Israel.
Right.
And so you spend time in Haifa, in different places. You meet, that's when I met Breaking the Silence and met Combatants for Peace. And then you meet different Israeli, and you go to, we also spent a weekend with a Shabbat weekend. So I did 2 Shabbats. One was in Jerusalem.
What's a Shabbat?
It's the Jewish, Sabbath.
Oh, right,
so it's from Friday evening till sunset on the Saturday. So, but we did a Shabbat weekend in Haifa, which is when we spent like a whole weekend. We stayed in an apartment and went to this, to another synagogue and spent some time with the, and they're a broad range of views. Everything from this is all our land, all of it is Palestinians need to go, to your liberal Zionist, which is it's not great, but
but it's comfortable for us.
Yeah.
And then I'm imagining you have people that are a bit further left.
Yeah, of course. I met some incredible. I've still got incredible Israeli friends that I've made out there.
Was that a bit? I don't know how to say this, but a bit fucked up to spend that long, for what's that, a month and a half, seeing how Palestinians live and are treated, to then go to the occupiers, to then that's a bit crazy. But then I suppose they do that for to see that you're not biased in any way, and to see that there's 2 sides to the story. Yeah,
I think what they want to show, is to see the balance.
Yeah.
There's all this thing about balance, and to see, and it is important because again, I think it just underscores the fact, like I've always said, I'm not anti anyone. I'm not anti-Israeli per se.
Mm-hmm.
I'm anti-occupation and apartheid. I'm anti-settler colonialism.
Which, if you ask most people, they'd be the same.
Yeah, if they understand what the situation is, and I think that's the thing. So, and I didn't agree with them, but I'm actually, for the most part, I have to say I'm generally pretty good at listening to someone and then trying to put my point across.
Yeah.
Because I think that you need to speak to each other as humans, because you've got no chance. It's different if you're a proper full-on Zionist that thinks all Palestinians should be dead. We're probably not going to move you.
It's already there. It's
exactly.
Instilled. Yeah.
It's instilled. So I think that. But there are other people that you can have a conversation with them and say, okay, if I accept this, that you feel unsafe and this is why you have these checkpoints, I need to also ask this question. What I have to ask myself is, why is it then Palestinian children are being put in prison?
Yeah.
And why is your conviction rate 99? So if I accept your premise that you feel unsafe, I have to ask, how are these behaviours by your occupying force making you safer?
Yeah. And what's the consequence of that?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to make you any safer down the road.
No, of course not, because it just instills hate.
Again, it's a boiling pot.
Exactly. Yeah, if people are oppressed, it's only so long people will accept that.
Yeah. I just think that's crazy. Obviously I don't know what you have to go through to get there, and then what you have to do when you're there. So say halfway through, so then you go and visit synagogues and stuff like that, and you stay with Jewish people, and then you go back in.
You go back in.
So did you go back to the same place, or?
Yeah. So you're the place where your location stays the same throughout. Right. It's just you take sort of, obviously, you go back to your placement.
Right.
So whilst I was there, obviously, as you know, so one part of the job that we do is provide protective presence, because what they realised is that when you had international observers there, that the military were less inclined to be as violent. Not always, there was no guarantee. Bearing in mind, we saw schools being, tear gassed, sound grenades, flash grenades, the whole lot. But they tend to be less,
obviously, when they're being watched.
Because they're still concerned about their international image, despite them having total impunity for everything they do. Settlers are different because they're ideological. You've got different. It's interesting with the settlers because you have some settlements where people go just because it's cheaper, it's subsidised, the government support them, and it's just cheap housing.
Yeah, I've seen that. When they take over an area, they subsidise the housing. Yeah, and
they hook them up to all the the infrastructure, the water, the electricity, all the rest of it. But the settlers who moved to like the same as the ones who were in East Jerusalem, and Hebron's the only one where the settlers are in the middle of the Palestinian neighbourhood, outside of East Jerusalem. So they're ideologically driven. They are, this is our land, God gave it to us, and so they're not impacted by you being an international. They're not worried about their reputation because they think that
they don't care either way.
No, they don't care, and because they think that they're God gave it to them, it's their God-given right. So settlers are different, and we all got attacked by settlers. I mean, I got Annette Cohen, who you can see on YouTube. You've seen some of the stuff that she does. Attacked us several times. She pinched and punched one of my colleagues, one of my teammates. She tried to kick me and was like screaming at us, and she attacked another one, and this is just normal. And then we had Offa, who I used to call Awful because he was awful.
Is this when you're walking through
Shahada Street?
So Jewish settlements?
Yeah, so but just when you're walking down, even in the Palestinian neighbourhood, because they live right in the middle of the Palestinian territory. So if you Hebron, you've got H1 and H2. So H2 is supposedly under Palestinian Authority control, but there's incursions all the time. It's total nonsense.
And H1 is military.
And H1 is under total Israeli control.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, so and you have checkpoints to go in, and Shahada Street, which we'll talk about in a minute, was the bit that got closed, and it's called the sterile zone. They shut it after a Zionist settler from Brooklyn who lived in Kiryat Arba went in and massacred a whole load of, it's called the Ibrahimi Mosque Massacre, or the Tomb of the Patriarchs is the other name for the mosque and the temple there. And after that they closed the streets. The Palestinians had to they had the consequence for a massacre against them,
right?
Which is just ridiculous. So lots of Palestinians lost their homes. Their homes are welded shut. Their stores were welded shut. They lost their livelihood. It was the busiest street, busiest area for businesses, and all the rest of it. They just shut it down. It was like an artery of the community.
Because I don't think what people understand as well is when you think of settlement, unless you actually read into it a little bit, you think someone turns up with a bulldozer one day and then but they actually circle off the entire area with soldiers, move in basically bulldozers and everything else, and that's it. You either get out or you're fucked.
Yeah, so exactly, and that's the thing. I mean, Hebron's slightly different in you don't really get demolitions, which you do in other areas in Hebron, but the city of Hebron you don't. Right. They just take over their homes. So they're literally, you'll have someone who goes out to work for the day, they come back and Israelis have taken over their homes. Right. Or they'll go to a wedding and they'll get dragged out. There's loads of videos you can see on YouTube.
Like I say, they're supported by the army.
Yeah, the army. Yeah. That's the thing, is they have their own personal security service. Yeah. And that's why Palestinians aren't allowed anywhere down that street anymore. So so you have settlements within the old city, but then you have settlements that are next to them. So you have Kiryat. So there's Israeli settlers will take over homes, and they'll have Palestinians on either side living with them, and they'll have so that's how Palestinians have checkpoints right outside their home. Right. But you'll have other areas where a whole neighbourhood has been taken over. So Kiryat Arba is one of the settlements, which is a bigger one, which the whole area. So there'll be no Palestinians living within that settlement at all.
And then that's it then. So once the settlement is complete, that is it. There's no going back. It is Israeli jurisdiction, even though basically Palestine is Israeli jurisdiction under any sort of method.
Yeah, so Israel has total control of everything in the area. You've just got a semblance of control by the Palestinian Authority, who collect taxes and are supposed to be responsible for, the normal things, civic things that a state would have.
So are they? What's happened there? Because surely that was meant to be a good thing, to have a Palestinian Authority to separate the two. But
yeah, I mean, the thing is, many would argue the Palestinian Authority, and they are totally corrupt. The leadership are corrupt. It doesn't mean that there aren't departments within them, like
They
their
wanna help.
education
Yeah.
department. Doesn't mean that there aren't individuals in there trying to do the right thing. But obviously the leaders, I would say, are all corrupt because they have a security agreement with Israel.
That's what I was going to say.
That's crazy to have a security agreement, and this is where lots of the issues arise. So the idea was that, I mean, if you look at what happened under the Oslo Accords, which is when the West Bank was split into 3 zones. So you have Zone A, which is supposedly fully under, which is what H2 would be.
Yeah.
Fully under Palestinian Authority control. You'd have B, which is the security is under Israeli control, and this, the administrative things are under, and infrastructure stuff is under Palestinian Authority control. And then you have Area C, which is where the land is for building. If people wanted to grow, in this, and it's where the fertile land is and all the rest of it. Area C is totally under Israeli control.
That was under, the Oslo Accord was under Bill Clinton, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, and the idea was that, it was, I don't know why they split it into those zones, but the ultimate aim apparently was that the other areas would then move under Palestinian Authority control, and that's where you'd have your 2-state solution.
Well, that was destined to fail from the get-go, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, of course, if you've got settlements, how can you possibly... It's not a Palestinian state, is it? If people can come in and take your homes and all the rest of it.
So when you were actually there for the 3 months that you were there, what did you actually see? What was it like?
I would say that you see the best and absolute worst of humanity, I mean, I learned a lot about myself and learned what they call sumud, which means steadfastness. And you learn a lot about being steadfast and finding the joy in the most awful circumstances. Like I remember at times at Youth Against Settlements, we'd always have a fire each night, and we'd be like singing songs, chatting and stuff like that, and and they'd laugh, they'd love life, despite living in a terrible situation where settlers at any moment can come and do anything really. They can walk around with rifles, even teenagers walking around with rifles. Palestinians having a stone in their hand is enough to get them arrested. Shot. Yeah, and shot. Well, shot. Yeah, exactly. But I think, but you see, like I saw a settler try to run over a 3-year-old and 18-month-old child. When I was there, I managed to grab the 3-year-old, and the father grabs the 18-month-old, where I had been just like a short time before, they shot an unarmed father dead, let him bleed out on the floor. You just see the total humiliation of the Palestinians on every conceivable way. They humiliated everything, like when they go through like the checkpoint, like they're made to undo their trousers and pull up their tops and go around and pull up their things, even though they've been through a metal detector and this, that and the other, and this is in their area. So
it's more about humiliating them than what it is security. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like the children, because they've totally strangled their economy. They're the children, often many of the families who live in abject poverty rely on the World Food Programme to give out food, although that funding got cut actually since 2018. But also there was another, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's it's like a charitable thing where Palestinians who can afford it donate food, and they make meals every day, so you can go and pick up soup and like pita bread. Yeah. But they would make the soldiers, for no reason, these children would go with these empty buckets to get some food, and for no reason at all they'd just make them stand at the checkpoint, like just waiting, and they just wouldn't, and they'd be like laughing in their booths and smoking.
I've seen a few videos where they wouldn't let them through for school.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
And if they miss the curfew, they have to sit there out all night on the street.
Yeah, they're just like, it's just absolutely horrendous. I mean, and I know, what I would say is, obviously, as with anything, you have some people who try to be kind. I did see a couple of soldiers that were clearly ashamed of what they were doing and were trying to be as nice as they could. You can't not violate human rights when your whole setup is a violation of human rights. Yeah. But they were trying to be as nice as they could, and you would have that. And I'd always try and acknowledge that, because I wanted them to know it wasn't about them as an individual. I saw them and I recognised that. Yeah. It's about, what's wrong. But then you'd have soldiers who were just total assholes, to be honest, that would... I remember one screaming in my face. I had one who used to spit on the floor in front of me.
So that's the thing, because when you said before about young Israeli soldiers walking around with rifles and shit, because they have the highest rate of suicide.
One of the highest rates. I don't know exactly, but yeah, we were told. So we had this lady called Israeli called Ruth Hiller, amazing woman, who gave us a talk about the militarization of Israeli society and talks about how they're indoctrinated. I mean, they're one of the most militaristic societies in the world, where literally from kindergarten they get taken to where they get to pretend to throw grenades, and they're indoctrinated into this. Everything's about the military all the way through secondary school, everything.
Yeah.
And then of course. I think it's at 18 they go into the army. They've got to do 2 years of military service. But they also get to, what I didn't know before I went there was they get to choose normally what units they go into. So when I was there, one of the things that was pretty awful was when we first got there, we had the Nahul, which are apparently the better ones because they come from a kibbutz. And they were, like, some of them were nice enough. Mm-hmm. Not all of them, and, but some of them... a couple of them we saw were trying to be not as nice, I guess, as they could within this situation. But then halfway through our service, we had the Golani, and the Golani come from one of the Zionist militia before Israel was formed.
Right.
And they are proper ideological. I mean, it was so bad the last time they did they had their service there, they were stations there, that actually they were removed. Their service came to an end within that area early, because it was so bad.
Because of their brutality?
Yeah, because their brutality,
right.
Yeah. So the Palestinians were absolutely terrified when they knew that the Golani were coming, and then they turned up, and everything changed. Like, the settler harassment massively went up. Whereas at one point, actually, when I was there, I saw a soldier step and hold his life because a car was driving down, clearly with the intention of running over a Palestinian. Mm-hmm. And we saw, to be fair, an Israeli soldier stepped up and had a gun, which you never really see, aimed at the Israeli car, the settler car. But that once the Golani came, everything changed, because you saw a massive rise in violence against Palestinians.
There has to be implications there where if you treat people as if they're not human on a societal level, there's going to be implications down the road for your society. You can't build a society on that.
No, well, it destroys the moral fabric of your society, and that's why the suicide rates are so high, because you're sending people. Most people, actually, I always believe this, are decent enough. Yeah, we're indoctrinated.
We have to be, because otherwise the world wouldn't be here.
Exactly. So I think most people are decent enough, and otherwise there wouldn't be so many movies where people root for the underdog. Yeah, I often think this. So I think that so when you send young people into that situation, and they're having to subdue a civilian population, it doesn't matter how much dehumanisation you do. Some people are going to recognise that is wrong. Yeah. Because when you see the Palestinian children, I mean, really, the fear that I saw of children going to school, nobody should have to be enduring that. I mean, there was one time when I remember it was awful when I talk about it actually in one of the presentations I did, which you can see on YouTube actually. The first talk I ever gave, which was at the Art Centre. And, there was we turned up one morning, as we normally did, to give protective presents. We used to walk with the children to school and then meet them when they finished school and walk them back home or be there, so that because settlers would attack the children, basically. And it was just really awful. And there's other things we do, like monitor human rights. We'd go and visit victims and take witness testimony and all the rest of it. We'd work with the UN agencies and different agencies. We used to have meetings regularly with them and stuff like that. But this morning we had turned up, there was like loads of soldiers that were obviously having a race or something, and they had like rifles around them, and they were like being loud and leery and having this. And the children, we could see them because they'd run down this hill. I mean, I was always terrified that they were going to fall, but they come, like children do, come zooming down and high-five
bowling
you.
Down it,
yeah. They were always like delighted to see you, which was nice, even though you felt like there's absolutely nothing you could do. Yeah. Just knowing that would make them feel somehow on some level.
Yeah, but at least your presence made them feel safer for a minute.
Exactly. But they were there, and they just stopped and froze at the top of the hill, just looking down. They were terrified, and we'd be like, "It's okay." We'd be having to go up and meet them and walk them down. And then I remember there was this teacher who I saw had just come through the checkpoints onto Shahada Street. Because this main school, we used to provide protective presence for 3 different schools: El Salaime, one in the El Salaime district, Ibrahimi school, and then but Cordoba was our main school that we used to do that for. And this teacher had come through the checkpoint, coming from H2 into H1, because that's where she worked. And she just froze. And I could see her, and I actually went over to her and I said, "Are you okay?" And she just said to me, "I'm scared." Imagine a teacher here being scared to walk to school. So I took her and I walked her past them, and they were just shouting. They just didn't care, the soldiers. Like, there was one who was saying, "Oh, they don't have to worry because we don't," what was it he said? We won't touch them whilst I don't have I won't touch them whilst I don't have my gun with me. And he was just being a total, I can't remember, it was something like that, where he was just being, and I thought, you total asshole, these are children. And I said that to him, I said, they're children.
Yeah.
You know? So
how were you treated? By the soldiers and stuff?
I mean, obviously, nowhere, you know, I wasn't treated like the Palestinians were. Some of the soldiers, the ones who were nice enough would be okay with you, and sometimes you'd be trying to strike the balance between acknowledging that they were being nice enough to you, but not being seen as being on their side, because you have to be, obviously, you know, appearances are everything, so you have to be really careful with that. But a lot of them were assholes, to be honest, like shouting at us. I had one who said, like, they stop us, we get harassed, they take our passport and photograph our passport. You know, they say, "We'll make sure you're never going to come into our land again." I remember that every single border into the West Bank is controlled by Israel. Yeah. So you can't fly into Palestine or go into Palestine without going through it. Yeah. So Israel controls all their borders. And, you know, I had one guy who was always screaming at me, like I said, one who would spit on the floor when he saw me.
For being a witness? For being a witness?
Yeah, just for being a witness. Because they perceive you as an enemy, and you're just, you know. So that was... and the settlers in general were just, you know, they would hate you. You were like, I don't know, a devil's spawn or something to them. Like, Offa would come and harass us all the time, cameras in our face.
Did you ever feel unsafe? That's probably a stupid question, but did you ever think that...
I think that... I don't think I personally felt... It's a strange one, because it was almost like I knew it wasn't safe on some level, but I knew I was protected by being European. Yeah. Because it's still not in their interest to shoot a European, because that will make the news. Yeah. But I know that obviously, I recognise, I suppose, what we call the privilege of having that European passport. But you always know it's not really safe. I don't know. I think that because I felt angry about it, it overrode any fear I had.
Yeah, do you think the fact that you were there as the bridge in between the horror of the Palestinian people from the Israelis, that kind of gave you a bit more strength?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because you're there to do a role. Yeah. And obviously, the interesting thing is you never really know how you're going to be until you're there and in that role.
I can imagine.
So that, you can have an idea of how you want to be and prepare yourself, but you can't really. But what was interesting for me is I went there and I went, right, this is, you know... And
get involved.
And I didn't... Perhaps I should have felt unsafe, but actually I didn't, because I was angry. I was pissed off about what was happening.
I guess deep down as well, and it's a testament to your character as well, you've got someone else to look after. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And you know yourself, like, when you've got someone to look after, you become secondary. So exactly. I'm pretty sure that played a massive part with you. It's a hard one, because when you're saying, because it's only getting worse. Yeah. It's not getting better, but the news coverage is getting less and less and less, which is obviously why I've got you here to talk about this, because no one's talking about this at the moment.
Well, it's become a toxic subject, hasn't it? I mean,
like everything now, everything's polarized. But then again, this should not be polarized, because this should just be about, regardless of religion, regardless of ideology, regardless of everything else. There should be at least, you know, a middle ground where we all walk and say, well, there's kids involved here. Let's at least sign something or do something or ensure their protection first, and then work our way up. That'd be a very simple thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the problem that's happened is obviously since you had Trump in power and he moved the embassy to Jerusalem.
The Golan Heights, was it?
No, also he accepted the Golan Heights, which you're not allowed to do. It's illegal under international law.
Previously Syria, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the Golan Heights, is part of Syria. It's still, the UN will still see it as occupied land.
That was after the 6-day war, where Israel.
Yeah.
occupied.
So that was when it was a preemptive strike by Israel on Egypt. When you had Nasser, that was when Nasser, they had Arab nationalism and the desire to regain control of their resources and of their land. But the from the imperial powers. But what happened was the embassy was moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is not to do because Jerusalem is considered Palestinian. Well, it was going to be given special status, and it has, by the UN. So it would be Palestinian, but it would, all groups would be allowed to go there and visit because obviously it's an important religious site for lots of people. So that happened, and then obviously funding to UNRWA, which was for the Palestinian refugees, was cut, and then you had this. So always the Israeli lobby has been there. So if you've ever watched, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but highlighted it about how the BBC was always scared of saying anything on Israel because they'd get a phone call from the Israeli embassy saying stuff. So we know that people censored themselves for years anyway, but the real censorship came actually when Jeremy Corbyn became leader. This is when it really took off. He became leader of the Labour Party because he was a supporter of Palestinian rights. He was a patron of the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign. He had campaigns on obviously Palestinian rights, and then you got this whole narrative that's got totally out of control, that if you say that Palestinians have the same rights as everybody else, you're now an anti-Semite. Including if you're Jewish. We have the wrong kind of Jew now, which is anyone that doesn't support Israeli apartheid.
That's the thing that's got me because, and obviously watching some of the shit that you get, because the two are not the same. So basically Zionism again, just to separate the two, is an idea, a movement.
Yeah, it's an ideology that's supported actually a lot by Christians.
Yeah, it's not a religion. Yeah, right. So first off, you have to separate them too. Yeah. Saying that someone deserves rights, especially when they're occupied, doesn't make you anti-Jew. Doesn't make you anything. It's not racial. It's not to do with anything. Anti-Semitism. That's the weird one because it seems to be this very easy thing to throw.
Yeah, it's just a word now that's lost its meaning.
Yeah, but it's become so diluted now. Yeah. The moment you say or speak up or anything about the plea of the Palestinian people, you're straight away thrown under that bridge of being an anti-Semite, which is fucking ridiculous because the two aren't the same. It doesn't mean that they're not even close to each other.
And nobody calls you Islamophobic when you call out Iran or Saudi Arabia for their crimes. No. Nobody calls you, or if you were to call out like support for Tibet, nobody says, "Oh, you're anti-Chinese."
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
And in fact, you'd probably be celebrated, to be fair, because we've all gone anti-China on.
But isn't that proof? Isn't that proof that there's a bias in our news reporting?
Of course.
And in our political sphere, because obviously if that's the mud that you throw, if that's the last thing you've got to call someone racist or anti-Semite or whatever. If that's the last argument. You've lost first off. But not only that, you have to back up these claims. And if you then put the two together, the idea of Zionism next to, the religion, and not only that, while you're trying to support the people of Palestine and say they're equal to everyone else, again, you've lost. Like, quite quickly, the argument doesn't go anywhere after that.
But the problem is that we've got a situation where it has. So how many people are censoring themselves now? And this is the thing.
But that's why people need to grow some balls. And you speak out because you know far well that you're not an anti-Semite. You're just doing what you know to be right.
We just got to ignore the labels. And I've said this. So what if they call me that? It doesn't. Applying a label to somebody doesn't make it true. Yeah. I'm calling for international humanitarian law to be applied. Yeah. That was the whole reason why it was created after the Second World War.
And you're raising
the Geneva Convention. Yeah, because we all agreed that humans should have fundamental rights and
you're raising awareness while you got it. Yeah. So I just don't get it. Because obviously, again, I write notes down and dates and stuff like that. But I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Because I haven't unravelled it. That's why I get people on to talk to them about it. But again, it's weird. Again, when you go back, we're the last place to be occupied.
Yeah.
We should have
in the
more.
West.
We should have more empathy when it comes to this situation. We should have, a bit more awareness, especially about it. We have a progressive party. Why are they not doing anything about this? Why are they not saying, or at least stop taking kids and treating them like fucking terrorists and locking them up?
Yeah, do you know what? It's tough because obviously, I am really disappointed with our progressive party in Jersey, and I support them on a lot. When it comes to it, I will support them over others because it's the choice that we have. Although I don't think our system is democratic.
That's far from democratic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not democracy anyway. 45% of your population turn out on a good year. It's less than half are voting. But the thing is that what's disappointing is I feel like they've gone from when Sam made some good points in the Parliament. That's why I looked him up.
Yeah.
Has now, because of the anti-Semitism so-called crisis, quiet. So even I couldn't get a single one of them to put through a proposition that would mean that our Parliament would condemn the imprisonment and torture of children. Now let that sink in. That should be a no-brainer. Who can possibly argue, bearing in mind that we accept the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. In fact, they promote it in schools now.
So did you present something to our political party?
I said to them I want to do this, and it was silence, and I asked someone else to approach them, and nothing. And I know that they do support, well, a couple of them I know do support.
We'll grow some balls and fucking support it then.
Yeah, but they won't. And this is the thing. bearing in mind, if we think about, we're going off a little bit, but when they were looking at hate legislation over here, which were long overdue, we needed, stuff in place. They were asked whether they would adopt the IHRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance definition, which, by the way, was never to be used in that way. Kenneth Stern, the guy who wrote it, said it was never to be used in this way.
It's been misinterpreted massively.
But it wasn't to be used in that way. It was never used for that purpose. It was for specific data gathering, and that was it. And he said he was concerned it was being used to stifle, suppress freedom of speech, which is absolutely right. So Jersey had said no at that point in time. The Board of Deputies kicked off. Stephen Regal kicked off, who's the president of the synagogue over here, and other individuals that I can't mention. And without any debate, it was suddenly accepted as government policy.
What is this again, the definition of it?
So most of it, so it's about, I can't remember the exact wording of it, but it's to do with, so whereas in any other thing, so if you were to say what is Islamophobia, it's hatred of Muslims because they're Muslims, hatred of,
it's got a definition, it's got a clear line of definition.
It's because anti-Semitism should be hatred of Jews and behaviour, and which translates into behaviour against Jews because they're Jewish. The same as it would be for gypsies, travellers, or anything else. But the IHRA is a certain perception, but most of if you look at the examples that are provided, are more to do with Israel. Very little about actually protecting Jews. It's to do with
the state
protecting Israel. So for me to say Israel is a racist endeavour is anti-Semitic, even though Israel is built is an apartheid state.
So if I say that Israel is an apartheid state, is that?
Yeah, it's anti-Semitism under the IHRA.
So I could get done for hate speech for that?
But although it can't be, this is the thing, is actually it can't in a court of law at this moment in time. It would never hold up. Because all you'd have to do is pull out international law and say, look at the Rome Statute, this is a definition of apartheid. How can that possibly be when we look at the...
So we've adopted something that's totally conflicted?
Yeah. That doesn't work.
That was never debated?
No. It was the Board of Deputies, the Jewish Chronicle, the Times of Israel, all highlighted. In fact, I wrote an article about it, about how they intervened in our democracy, which is questionable as a democracy anyway, and forced the implementation of a policy or a definition that under scrutiny has not held up, and it's been looked at so you've had various people, including I think Brian Klug is his name, a number of Jewish I can't remember all their names, but a number of Jewish individuals have looked at it who are experts in anti-Semitism and worked against it because they're also Jewish. It's obviously something that's important to them. And of course, we know that anti-Semitism exists like every other form of racism.
Yeah.
And they've said that it's not fit for purpose, and yet it's been adopted.
Are you telling me that not one person over here stood up and said, well, hang on a minute?
I believe that Sam in the meeting apparently raised concerns, but nothing else. Like, he never came out and said anything. There's not been anything since then. And this is the thing, is that, and not only that, but they went silent. So when I asked, so recently when we had a Twitter storm for Issa, who I know we're going to talk about, I sent a tweet out to every single member of our Progressive Party, and I sent a tweet to Deputy Morale and Senator Pallet, asking them whether they'd issue a statement of support for Issa, a UN formally recognised human rights defender who's a subject of an amnesty campaign. You know, there's no question about this. He spoke at the UN Security Council, and he's got a lot of support, including from liberal Zionists. He's known as the Palestinian Gandhi, and I think, given a lot of encouragement to do that, but only after after Deputy Morale and Senator Pallet tweeted in support.
Only two?
No, so only those two, but only one of the progressives, and only after pressure. So Sam Mezek, Monty, and I got a lot of respect for Monty, but all the other members, not one of them tweeted in support. Even though the UN's released a statement, even though it's an amnesty campaign, even though he's not a grey area for discussion. Yeah. He doesn't have well, maybe this could
just so people understand exactly who we're talking about, excuse me. Issa Amro, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's how you pronounce it. Is a Palestinian activist who advocates non-violent resistance and civil disobedience to fight Israeli occupation. He has been beaten, arrested, and is now being indicted by the Israeli military courts. In 2013, United Nations Human Rights Council expressed concern for his well-being after numerous arrests and continued harassment. He's only 40 years old. So you have someone who believes in non-violent resistance and civil disobedience, someone who is open every day. I've seen a few videos of him and, the stuff that he does. Genuinely a good man, like, to say the least. Do you know what I mean? He's put his life on the line, literally. And yet no one can back him.
One of our Progressive Party after pressure, but only after two other politicians tweeted in support. And this is what I'm saying, is that we've got a situation where people don't have the courage to stand up. And if the people, and I always say, the true value somebody holds when it becomes difficult to hold them. That's when you know where someone's at.
Well, this is the thing. You know me. I'm an advocate for free speech. I'll always stand by that. It's irrelevant where that takes me. It's irrelevant who hates me for it. Yeah. And it's irrelevant of how many arguments I get in because of it, right? And we can thrash out the details and the intricacies of that. But the bottom line is, if you have no courage, if you're not true to yourself, if you're not true to what you say, other than around election time, obviously when they need your votes and you're pandering to people, then you're not worth the paper you're printed on. Literally, it's one of them things where if you hold these ideals, and if you hold them in secret, you're not planning for a better tomorrow. You're self-serving. It's as simple as that. Because I can say that I support Issa because he seems like a decent guy, just from what I've read and just from what I've seen and what I've heard from you. But beyond that, he's a humanitarian. He's a man trying to do something for the better. He's not shooting people. He's not, calling for violence.
Has. Yeah, never has. It's not like he went one route and then just chose another.
But even if he did.
Yeah, if he did, you'd still support him. But what I'm saying is it's not even like, but I have to be careful because of his background.
It's not even a call to question. There's nothing in there that you can, So can they call themselves progressives? That's the question, because
that's a question
I'm not actually sure.
They should ask themselves. I mean, personally, obviously I'm very disappointed. I'm like, this is a guy, he's also a good friend of mine, Issa, but this is a guy who, beyond question, has been unfairly convicted and harassed and suffered beatings and all the rest of it. Like, I remember him when I was there one day really struggling with pain because of the beating he had taken, in the past. And this is a thing. And I think if you can't take a stand for that, and you only take a stand for when something's popular, I get annoyed when people jump on bandwagons like Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
But actually, I was saying stuff long before that, long before it became the cool thing to do. I was already stating stuff.
Well, this is the thing. That's why a lot of people don't, go left in politics, because they can see that it's full of bandwagon jumpers. Because, like you say, you can call it people are people. They can see it. Do you know what I mean? They can see, but that's a strange one to me that. That we've got a progressive party and not one of them are standing up for essentially what's right.
Not for Issa, not willing to put a proposition
for children.
For children.
Yeah.
Children who 40% are sexually abused.
And sent to military
tortured,
courts,
put
prisons,
in, and all the rest of it. Absolute, what do you call it? Oh goodness, DCI, Palestine. I'm forgetting what it means. What those initials mean, but they've done a lot of work on the targeting of Palestinian children. I mean, from the age of 12, I mean even younger. I saw a younger child arrested when I was there, but from the age of 12 incarcerated.
Yeah, for throwing rocks mostly.
Exactly, forced to sign confession that they don't understand. Don't have access to a lawyer
because it's a different language as well. That's what people don't understand.
And moved into a territory, into Israeli territory, which you're not allowed to do under international law.
Yeah, so they get arrested when they're young. They literally get thrown
Defence
into...
for Children International.
They literally get thrown into jail from the age of 10, 11, 12, whatever. They're interrogated for days in a language they don't understand. All of this is wrong. Yeah. It's wrong on every level. Why is it so hard to condemn it? And why are people such fucking cowards that they can't? I can condemn it now. I mean, I'm a no one, but I can still fucking condemn it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me an anti-Semite. That doesn't make me anything.
I think it's because people put political interest first. But
the problem is
that, but the thing is that how do bad things happen in life? It's
by people
because
turning
people
away.
Allow them to happen.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, is like, this is what makes me laugh. When we look at McCarthyism, and I remember watching a movie years ago about McCarthyism, when the Reds under the bed, with the everyone was a communist and the witch hunt and all the rest of it. And people accept that was wrong and go, oh, isn't, McCarthy was terrible, this, and yet we're having the same thing now, and people aren't batting an eyelid. And the same people, and that's when you know where people stand, is when it counts. Well, because it's easy when nobody's attacking you. It's easy to say, Palestinian should have rights. Children shouldn't be sexually abused and tortured in prison. Yeah. It's easy to say that. You know where somebody's values are at is when there's a price for you to pay for it. And that's the thing. And that's why, for me, I don't care what labels. So what? You call me an anti-Semite. Your words mean nothing to me because I know where I stand. I know that my stance is supported by international law. Even if it wasn't, it's about morality, but it's supported by international law.
It's supported by anyone with any sort of integrity at all.
Absolutely.
I mean,
so it's
like I said, I didn't really realise it was that bad, and obviously until you said that, I'm not disappointed because I don't care. I have no faith in any of them, but I can understand why you would be.
Yeah.
Is it the same in the UK? Is it as bad as what Jersey is?
It's even worse in the UK. So if you look at what's happened in the Labour Party, where there's been a massive purging. I mean, I don't
That's
know
why everyone's an anti-Semite now.
Yeah, everyone's an anti-Semite now. Anyone who doesn't say, Israel has the full right to oppress the Palestinian people is an anti-Semite. And this is a thing, whereas I remember a Jewish person saying, I can't remember who it is now, but quite a famous Jewish person said, in the past, anti-Semitism used to mean people who didn't like Jews. Now it means people who Jews don't like. What he means is Zionists don't like, actually. And I think it's really important. And that's why they try to conflate the two. Judaism and Zionism, because that's how you stop the criticism. But if you make them one and the same thing, when you criticise a political ideology, all of a sudden it's considered racism.
How can people far more intelligent than me, let's be honest, who have got GCSEs, that's all you have to do to be more smart than me, how can they not see the conflation of the two being a problem? And how can they not decipher it and bring it to the front and actually debate it?
Because it's become so toxic. The thing is now, people are so terrified. Bearing in mind, actually, I'll give you an example, of how bad it is. And this is before it got as bad as it is now. We used to have a member of our group, a young man, who was at uni. And he contacted me once and said, I don't want to be part of PSE anymore. Well, he hadn't turned up for meetings for ages, so I never saw him as part of our group anyway. But he contacted me and said, I don't want to be part. And I said, oh, okay, that's fine. He said, I want my name removed from any of your documents. And I was like, okay, can I ask why? I'm a little bit... We didn't see you as part of the group because we haven't seen you for so long, but can I just ask why? And he said, because I'm concerned about anti-Semitism. And I said, well, that's quite a claim to make. You know, that's quite, and it's really important. If anybody has been displaying anti-Semitism in our group, then I need to know, because we need to address this, because we're an anti-racist group.
Yeah.
We will not accept anti-Semites, and we did expel someone who was actually anti-Semitic. And he admitted to me, well, it's not really that, it's just I'm scared that it might affect me when I go for a job. And so this is the thing, and I said, that's quite, it's quite a claim to make, but actually what you're saying to me is, I don't want to be associated with this, not because you are anti-Semitic and not because I've seen anything, although I initially claimed it, but when I've tried to drill down with you, it's because you're scared of how someone else might perceive it. And I said, I said, it's fine, I will make sure that you're not on anything, but I just want to tell you that that's a very dangerous and that's a very unfair claim to make, because it's fine if you don't have the courage, that's fine, but don't make it harder for us.
If you're not a person of principles, then it's not for you. It's simple as that. But
and I always think of the the saying Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends."
Yeah. That's the crazy part, because it seems to be at a point now where you say, obviously, again, I don't lean either way, and I'm not part of any parties, but anyone with half a brain cell can see what's going on here, and it's very one-sided, and it has been for a very long time. It shouldn't be hard to condemn, especially what's happening with children, and then work your way up. If you're that much of a coward, do you know what I mean? And you can't just walk in there and say exactly what needs to be said. But it's more dangerous than what just this situation is.
Of course.
Because that means that someone...
It's everything.
Yeah, that means that someone is controlling the narrative. Yeah. Even to the very point of, in our state's assembly, we're little old Jersey, no one gives a fuck about us. But even to our democracy, I say that fucking, but
use a term loosely.
Yeah. But even in our democracy, it gets to the point where people are fearful of, pointing out human rights claims, which tells me they shouldn't be in charge, because what happens about my human rights? Can they be bought and sold?
Exactly, and that's the point, isn't it? Is that I said this one of the jobs that I had when I was away was taking delegations around Hebron. So a lot of them would be politicians, so MEPs, MPs from all parties. And I said to one of them once, I said, we need to understand there's a cost to us if we make international law irrelevant. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it starts with the Palestinians, but it won't end there, because it sets a very dangerous precedent. And you can see Modi in India saying, well, Israel are doing this, so we can do what we like in terms of Kashmir. Yeah. And I think, and that's the thing, isn't it, is that it's such a dangerous situation, where you have so for instance in the Labour Party, where, it's just become a total joke. The actual Labour Party, where it wasn't anti-Semitic before, there were, of course, you're always going to have anti-Semites in any party.
You're going to get racist dickheads no matter what.
It's representative of your population, and that needs to be dealt with. But it was something like 0.06% when they did a study on it. Yeah. But it was blown way out, whereas the Tories weren't ever looked at, even though we know the Tories are all sorts of things. And Boris Johnson wrote an anti-Semitic novel.
This is what I'm saying. It's no longer a conspiracy at that point. It's now becoming the fact where you say, well, hang on a minute, you can literally be bought, and I'm talking about progressives and right-wing, whatever,
anyone.
Centre-left, whatever. You can literally be bought. Your opinions can be bought. So then, this is what I'm saying.
And you're these gatekeepers of the accepted debate and narrative.
Yeah. So if you're the gatekeeper of the narrative, and you're saying what can and can't be discussed, this is why I'm always about freedom of speech, because let's be honest, it never helps the little guy when you restrict speech. It only helps the people in power. Yeah. Now, that could be under the guise of racism. It could be under the guise of anything. Do you know what I mean? Hurt fucking feelings, whatever.
It's a cancel culture thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But it never helps the little guy. No. That's the pretense that they use. They'll say that it's for this and it's for that. Yeah. But when it circles back, it always comes back to you. You're the one sitting in the back of a police van because you shared an opinion, or you had an argument, or you...
that was no longer considered acceptable. Yes. Which is what happened in Nazi Germany, actually.
Exactly. The first thing they do, any tyrannical government, the first thing they do is take away your speech. The second thing they do is control the narrative. Yeah. The fact that people can't see this, or the fact that progressives aren't pointing that out, shows to me that you're just all in the same. That's why I don't follow politics. That's why I don't follow politicians. That's why I don't care about. Because if you can be bought, we know that right-wingers can be bought. We know that they only care about money. Do you know what I mean? That's generally their thing. Do you know what I mean? But now that's sort of like in bed with the left in a very big way. Because if you don't have the balls or integrity to stand there and say, well, hang on a minute, this is wrong. Irrelevant of the history and the ideology and the religion or whatever the fuck goes with it, they're all hot potatoes. But if you're not brave enough to grab the hot subject and run with it, you know, under the guise of...
protect the right to have the
under the guise of, you know, morality. Do you know what I mean? Then, again, you're not worth the paper you printed on, you're not worth the vote, which is why most people don't vote, because they probably see that. Do you know what I mean?
I think, and that's the danger, isn't it? Like, and this is why I get so frustrated with Owen Jones, who I think is part of the problem, is because Sam, I know, really looks up to Owen Jones and has him on idol. Owen Jones is a writer for The Guardian, but he's he's a cancel culture. Yeah, he's a prick, and and there was stuff I respect with him, still stuff he says sometimes.
He fucking annoys me, like, he's a virtue signalling little prick.
He is. Anyone who disagrees with him, he has a tantrum. But the thing is, he enabled this. He enabled this shutting down of speech about Palestine. And we've gone from, so like in the Labour Party now, Jews are disproportionately being suspended and expelled from the Labour Party. Jews! Under Starmer. Jews are being disproportionately, for calling out, you know, the nonsense of the IHRA and for supporting Palestinian rights. Yeah. Now, you've got something wrong when you've got this so-called, you know, what do you call it, a war on anti-Semitism, when actually your greatest target are Jews. Yeah. You know, there's something wrong there when we've got the wrong kind of Jew.
That's what I'm saying. That's proof.
Along with the left-wingers, actually, the Labour Party's no longer...
But that's proof. Yeah. That has nothing to do with, you know, caring about people's feelings and racism and stuff like that. It's just about, like you say, being the gatekeeper of the narrative.
It's a witch hunt. And it's a reason to...
I think people have worked out, well, we've known this for years, but like, you know, now people are working out that if you can control the narrative, whether, you know, the consequences are going to be called, you're either a racist, you're either a bigot, you're homophobic, you're this, you're that, you know, fill in the blank, right? If that's the consequence, then people are starting to... I see it all the time. That's why I say what the fuck I want when I want, and fuck the consequences. But I see it now where people who used to be quite open and broad, and they're not any of the titles that I just named. They're actually great people. Do you know what I mean? But now they're watching what they say and everything, because every microaggression now could be blown into a proportion where they... And the problem is, again, that's why I was saying about this fucking stupid shit with Inna or whatever I can't remember her name. But... And Eva Mezek. Do you know what I mean? Where they're calling for this thing about, you know, the bullying and the stuff. Yeah, I'm not advocating for bullying. No, I'm not advocating for people being pricks. I'm just saying that you're going to meet them. It's the fucking world. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So the irony here...
You have to know the difference between, so you know, somebody saying something stupid and actually it being a legitimate threat.
Well, what's going to happen if someone gets drunk and goes, fuck off, you fucking dickhead? Then what? What? You go to jail? What happens then? So, but the problem is, and there's a weird irony here happening, you're advocating for this, for normal people. You're legislating for, or want to legislate, you know, basically thought police, you know, speech police. I call them speech Nazis, fuck them. So you're advocating for that, at the same time refusing to say anything about everything that we've just covered. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. What does that say about them?
Yeah. And that's the thing, and they need to ask themselves that. Only Sam and the others can say that. And like I said, there's a lot I support him on. But this, I'm very disappointed on, and I think it's an issue. I think I've said to you, cancel culture of liberals. You know, quite often I get frustrated, as I said to you before, because often on the left, when you're genuinely left, a genuine socialist, which I am, and I'm quite proud of that, because I believe in the working classes. But I get frustrated because often we're tarred with a brush of actually a thing that's liberal, which the liberals, cancel culture of liberals, whether it's left, centre, right.
Yeah, I'm starting to understand the difference.
It's an issue of that. Because actually real socialists support freedom of speech even when they don't agree with it, which is how it should be.
But that I'm starting to understand the difference between liberal and obviously left, and that's the thing. But like I say, if you know, I might not agree with you, but I'll defend to death your right to say it. Do you know what I mean?
Of course.
And then there's this thing, there's no freedom of speech without consequence and yada, yada, yada. And you just think, just shut the fuck up. If you don't like it, move on. If you don't like what you see, block and move on. Do you know what I mean? You have, you know, the world at your fingertips, especially on social media, because that's where it comes from. Yeah. No one would ever walk into a pub 10 years ago, 20 years ago, pre-Facebook or Twitter or whatever the fuck. No one would walk into a pub and go, you can't say that. Yeah. You'd be thrown out the pub. Do you know what I mean? Not because of anything that the pub's racist or just because you can't tell people what to say and what not to say. If you want to debate people and debate ideas, that's fine. But as we've already covered, no one's debating anymore because they're too scared. And this is the problem.
It is.
It's
a very dangerous thing when you can't debate stuff. And actually, because the more you suppress people's freedom, you actually push them to the other side. And I always say this, is you might have someone who actually is probably quite reasonable but concerned about something and says something. So because you're not debating it, having the conversation and shutting them down and labelling them because of it, what you do is you actually push them to the other side. Well, you haven't won an argument with them.
I think
you've just pissed them off.
Yeah, and you've made them go underground.
And galvanised, actually.
And you've actually made them go underground.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's a massive problem as well. Yeah, and that happened with... I watched it a few years ago. I think it was about when there was a conversation about having kids coming over from Syria. Was it Syria?
When we were looking at having 6 families.
Right. Yeah. Now, because I said I agreed, and I think Cheyenne said she agreed or something on a post, and then loads of people start going, oh, well, hang on a minute, what about our kids and all that? And I'm like, well, I'm with you. I'm like, hang on, I'm not giving you a choice out of the fucking two. You can do both. Right? It's one of the richest places on the fucking planet. Yeah. But anyway, and I started seeing it, but then I started seeing genuine people who are having genuine questions about immigration getting thrown with them fuckers. And I was like, hang on a minute, if you can't ascertain between the two, you shouldn't be at the table. You haven't shown the maturity to be at the table to have an adult discussion. That's been swept aside now. That we don't even have that sort of foresight. We have nothing. Straight away, it's a microaggression, which means that you're this and you're that, and then people know you before they even, anything. And I blame online dialogue. Well, not dialogue, but I blame online. That's why I say there's no context in text. That's literally why I started the show, because it's fucking ridiculous the way it's got. It's getting even worse. I call it out every time I can because it will only get worse. People need to grow the fuck up in certain aspects.
And they need to understand the long-term implications for everybody of it. And I agree with you, because that's the thing. I think we're good examples of people who don't always agree on stuff.
No, we don't at all.
But actually we can go, okay, let's have a discussion and a debate about it.
That's what makes you...
And still like each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. No, your ideology might not be mine. We might see the world through, totally different lenses, but that doesn't mean that I don't respect you. It doesn't mean that you have to...
And it doesn't mean that we're not wanting the same thing.
Exactly.
Because that's the thing sometimes, is actually just how it's views on how you get somewhere.
My route might be shorter than yours might be shorter than mine, who knows, right? But, and again, because I don't, spend too much time in why don't you run, by the way? Why don't you run for office?
Me?
Yeah. Just to quick, I haven't even got that written down.
I've been asked that several times, especially recently. I think because...
We know you won't budge.
I won't budge, and that's the point. And I think the thing is, the reality is that, the amount of stick I would get for one thing, I wouldn't have a hope in hell. I am actually progressive. I don't have the banner of progressive. I am actually progressive, and I think that I don't compromise on stuff when it's so connected values. There's lots of stuff actually I don't have an opinion on, and almost like I have no real particular thoughts, and but there are certain things I feel very strongly about, and I think that I think with my personality type that I would struggle with it, because one, I can't stay quiet if I see something that's wrong, as you know. Yeah. But equally, I think that's a good thing. I would be like, what would I be doing it for? Yeah, but it'd be a breath I wouldn't win anything.
It'd be a breath of fresh air just to put.
Just to have someone there telling them that they're wrong. You're wrong.
Every now and then people need the fire lit under their ass again to remind them of what they've done. Again, I don't really give a fuck whether they're progressives or not, because, like I said to you a million times, I don't fall under any banner. You know me well enough to know that I'm there for fairness and equality, and I believe in all them things.
Yeah, of course you do.
If people throw the label socialist at me, that's fine, but I just don't wear one. Do you know what I mean? I'm just a guy. That's all I am. I'm just a guy. But people like you, or even fucking heaven forbid Cheyenne, it would just be a breath of fresh air to see someone and go, look, I'm not here for fucking...
Maybe we could run together. We could be partners. Right.
I'm not here for, the longevity of being a politician. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to end up being that grey old man, do you know what I mean, standing there with a suit and tie constantly telling you that, about the economy that's fucking dead. Do you know what I mean? But it'd just be a nice, to remind people of why they went in. Because I genuinely do think that Sam, Monty, fill in the blank. I think that everyone does go into politics with, a sense of change, and the right intention. Yeah, the right intention to make sure that maybe one day they can be not the pillar of morality and blah blah blah. But I think they get corrupted by power, And I think that if you can be swayed the way that we've already spoke about how they have been swayed, you can't get away from it now. Do you know what I mean?
No.
If no one's condemning, what's happening to Issa, if no one's condemning the fact that kids are getting locked up, and the weirdest thing to me is the irony that if there's kids in cages in America, everyone's going fucking wild.
Yeah, and this is the point, isn't it?
It's the hypocrisy.
Don't tell me you care about children. And do you know what? That's one of the things I hate more. It's why I hate what Labour now represents. It's not about whether, of course I hate the Tories. Why would I like them? I'm a working class individual. What the Tories ever done for us as working class people. So of course I hate them, but I hate hypocrisy more. I hate when you say that you're something and actually clearly by your actions you're not, because I think it's so dishonest. We know if you say you're a Tory, we know what you stand for.
I think that's what happened in the last election. I think people genuinely sat there and went, I know I'm going to get fucked, but at least I'm going to get fucked with someone that I know is going to fuck me.
Yeah.
As opposed to a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, although I say last time the problem was they actually had a choice of something different. But I think years before they've been screwed over so much on Brexit.
Yeah,
putting the Brexit referendum, they just went, well, why should we believe you?
Well,
we've already voted and said we don't want.
This is the thing, and this is where I ran into support because I don't sway either way. I'm just sitting there going, it was a referendum, it was a democratic vote, respected.
Whether you agreed with the outcome or not, right.
And then because
democracy.
because everyone crowd fat, and then you think, well, would we give you power? And remember, couple that with the fact that there's only really one side, liberals, that are calling, cancel culture and saying what you can and can't speak. So you can overturn what they tried to do, overturn a democratic vote, tell you what you can and can't say. Very quickly, you're looking at something that's totalitarian. That's
of
not
course. Which is what the Labour Party is become.
Exactly. So this is what I'm not saying that because I actually like Jeremy Corbyn as a person. I said all the run up that he's a good person, a shit politician. That's a compliment.
He doesn't know who his enemy is. He doesn't know how to fight them.
And as well, that's a compliment because you don't want to be a fucking good politician if you're a good person. The two don't run in the same roads. Do you know what I mean? As again, we've covered. I do think though that every now and then someone like yourself, or even having this talk, it's reminding people, do you know what I mean, who did go in for change, do you know what I mean, what their set of values were, what they used to be, and how they got there. Do you know what I mean? I can't remember the exact quote that Tony Benn said, but it was like 5 main questions that you should ask yourself, like, who gave you power?
Who gave you power? How can it be removed?
That's it, the two main ones, So like, who you answerable to or something like that, So like, there should be a criteria where I think every year people are pulled on their, not only their policy, but on their, you said this in, whatever it was, like Jeremy Mason said that he wanted free school hours and yada, yada, yada. And all of a sudden we find ourselves
it's all debating whether it's
I think people are just sick and fucking tired of being fucked over, and I think that's just it. And like,
don't make a promise that you won't uphold. Actually, it's best just to say, I can't do this.
Even if it costs you a job. Even if you turn around and go, look, if it's not passed through, then I'll be fucking out the door tomorrow. At least then you can leave with your, and that's where you've been bought and sold. That's where you can judge the character of a man, because if you turn around and say, I nail myself to this cross. Do you know what I mean? I die on this hill, right? Yeah. And I'm doing it for the right reasons. If it doesn't go forward, then I can't fucking go forward with it. Yeah. So, it's...
There's certain things you can't compromise on.
No.
And I think the thing is, like, a sad thing, I mean, although it's a side point, the whole thing with the Jeremy Corbyn, with the thing, was actually and this was the sadness of it, he respected the result and got pushed by Starmer into offering a second referendum.
Right.
Which he said he would stay neutral on. He always said,
I respect the decision.
I respect the decision. And that's why in 2017 he did so well. And actually, had his own party not undermined him, he would have won. The difference in 2019 was he got forced into, because what happened, we found out, was that they were threatening to walk out the party. So he would have been left in a situation just before an election
where he had nothing.
Where he had not. And so they pushed for the second referendum, which they knew would destroy him, which is what it did. And they knew that that's what they planned to do. But that's a side point. I think that, now you can't even have a discussion as to whether you think
Brexit's a good idea or
Brexit's a good idea or not, or whether you think Jeremy Corbyn should have the whip restored to him or not. And this is what's happened in the Labour Party. You get suspended just allowing people to have that debate. So when you talk about freedom of speech, there is no freedom of speech in the Labour Party.
That's a bigger problem than what people realise. And this is I think the Brexit, if I'm honest, because I don't again give a fuck either way. I think Brexit was a massive fuck you to the system itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not, to Brussels, to everyone,
The ruling classes. As a whole?
I think it was a massive fuck you to them. I don't think it was necessarily left or right.
No.
But I do,
there were good arguments actually on both sides as to why you
definitely.
should leave.
And the thing was,
Or stay.
But again, online, it became, you know, basically they're too old to vote, which is fucking crazy. Do you know what I mean? These people fucking probably fought in the war for you.
And
do you know
they're
what I mean?
stupid.
And they're stupid, and they're gammon-faced, yada, yada, yada. And the thing went one way, and you sat there and went, well, hang on a minute. If people vote a certain way, that doesn't mean that you attack them. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the best way to end up with a polarised nation, as we've got.
Which we got.
Same as America, do you know what I mean? It's anti-liberal. It's anti-left. It's anti-everything, because it used to be, I disagree with you, but at the same time I'll listen to you and then hopefully try and change your mind in some way, shape or form. You know, that used to be, you know, the cornerstone of being a liberal or being liberal-minded. Do you know what I mean? Now that's fucking gone. That's well out the window. Now it's basically two shades of the same fucking Nazi. That's what I see it as. I don't see it as any different anymore. I don't see...
Well, anyone who shuts freedom of speech down...
That's why they get my attention. That anyone who does... It doesn't matter who they are. Even if I'm loyal to them, it doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter anything. The moment someone says, you can't say, my ears perk up and I look at them and go, why?
Yeah.
You either have freedom of speech or you don't. Do you know what I mean? We can argue the fact that inciting violence, obviously.
Of course, incitement is...
Yeah, you can argue racial abuse.
You have to have boundaries.
Yeah, there has to be a clear, concise law and boundary. Which is why when people, you know, like the TNCs of Facebook and Twitter that are constantly getting worse and worse and worse, for both sides, for any... people need to understand a platform is there so you can be part of the discourse. Do you know what I mean? So you can be part of the debate. If, you know, your opinion on this and then, you know, isn't, you know, what the narrative should be, if that gets you banned, that's a problem. Same as in a Labour Party, if speaking about Jeremy Corbyn or whatever the fuck...
Yeah, it gets you suspended.
That's a problem. Do you know what I mean? If condemning children being tortured and, you know, sexually abused and treated as adults in a fucking military prison gets you shunned in any way, that's a problem.
Of course.
That's the conversation that needs to be happening, not anything else. Get that right first, and then we can carry on with this loosely termed democracy. But until then, I don't know, it's a strange one.
And I think the thing is sometimes when you see, like, especially, I mean, a thing on Palestine, I've obviously learned so much from having been involved because of the targeting. I mean, bearing in mind, they tried to lose me my job. They literally wrote to the chief minister and asked me to be removed from my position.
Who?
I can't say who. But yeah, an individual within, well, actually it was a group, but an individual of that group over here wrote to the chief minister, asked me to be removed from my position because they said somebody with views such as mine should not be working within education. And what happened was I got called into a meeting. To be fair, the chief minister didn't, you know, said I had the right to do the things I did, so respect to him for doing that.
Was that Le Font?
No, it was Ian Gorst.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, fair play to him.
Yeah, fair play. And that's the thing is, we disagree on an awful lot, but respect to him for at least saying that. And I know that he massively supports Israel. Yeah. So even more respect to him, you know. And I got called into a meeting with my senior management, and I was just told just to be careful. So I wasn't censured or anything. I was just told to be careful. And this is the thing. And this is what, you know, this is what is so concerning. So I've learned a lot from it. I've been targeted. All sorts of things. I've been called stuff in the newspaper. I've obviously had a letter sent to my, to my flat. I had, all sorts of things being called.
But you didn't run to the police for every single one, though, did you?
No, I'm just like...
Yeah, our politicians do. What a fucking joke.
I know. Well, I just think, if you make a physical, threat to me, then that's different. Yeah, because obviously. Then I'm like, okay, well, that's about my well-being. If you call me an effing see you next Tuesday, which I have been, okay, that's fine. I don't think too much of you either. Yeah. But there we go.
But that's the best way to deal with it.
It's like,
but at least then
I don't care.
You're going to garner more respect by dealing with it like that than running to the fucking police like our current politicians are doing every time they get called a twat. But it just seems to be that it's so far-fetched now from reality where, you know, people that are progressive or whatever, they use the term working class constantly, yet they don't even understand how we speak. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Calling someone a cunt is a term of endearment where I come from. Granted, You know, granted, you know.
I'm not sure I would receive it.
No, but what I'm saying is, it's like, you know.
No, I know what you're saying.
There's ways that we talk and there's jokes that we tell and there's things
You've got to
that,
understand that.
We grow up, you know, you grow up ripping each other's mums. Do you know what I mean? You spend your entire childhood trying to make, you know, your other friend. Because what you're doing is you're feeling out who's weak and who's strong, who focuses, who folds. That's what you do. Do you know what I mean? That's what poor kids do. That's what I done growing up. People call it playing the dozens. You know, you rip each other's mums to bits. Do you know what I mean? You come out with the quirkiest, most brutal stuff that you can. The first kid to cry is the first kid out the fucking gang. Do you know what I mean? That's just the way it is. It's the same as fighting. Do you know what I mean? The first kid to run is the first kid that's out the gang or the group that you're hanging with. Because you can't be trusted. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's the same way, and I guess that I'm biased that way looking at politicians in that measure. Maybe I'm wrong. But it'd be nice to have a fucking man every now and then, or a woman that stands by their morals or their moral compass or their integrity without... you know, selling themselves down the thing because they might get called a name. It's easier,
politically expedient, as they say. It's easier, makes their life easier, and it's wrong. It's just wrong.
Has that been passed?
The spy cops, yeah. Well, it went to House of Lords.
Right.
Shami Chakrabarti tried to put an amendment in that would protect, you know, people from things like murder and stuff like that.
And rape.
And what happened was Labour whipped the politicians into basically not voting against it, not supporting the introduction of the basically checks and balances into it. So basically they got whipped. Only 18 went against the whip.
So it's been passed now.
It's been passed.
And what does that entail? For people watching, what does it mean? What is the Spy Cops Bill?
So the Spy Cops Bill basically means that undercover police or security forces, because now it's not limited to the police, can, when they're undercover, commit any crime against you.
Right.
Without any restraint, and you know, so there's no restrictions,
no consequences,
you know, so there's no sort of boundaries for this,
right?
With total impunity. It only has to be signed off by their their officer, basically,
their superior officer.
Your line manager would be. So your superior. So basically what spy cops means is that so the reason why it got there was already things that protected things like police informants and the police, undercover police. They were already there. This is obviously the Conservatives have put this in because we're becoming much more totalitarian society. Is this a police state, basically, we're moving into, if we're not careful. But certainly the signs are already there. So it basically legalises it. So there wasn't a law before you'd have to make your case and then you'd be but there was lots of protections there anyway for you know, the idea was that, say for instance, an undercover police officer needs to commit a crime in order to be accepted into a gang because they're undercover, that they would be protected, you know, they wouldn't be held accountable because they were there, you know, and
for the greater good.
So but originally it was limited to things like for national security, which is a very ambiguous term anyway.
For terrorism and stuff like that.
But, you know, it should have been for things like terrorism and stuff like that. But that's been moved now, so it could. So the other things that are covered under spy cops are threat to public disorder and to protect the economy, and it's not just the police. So trading standards, the food agency, and I can't remember what the others are, now could have a security services go under cover, you know, and it could be even private.
Like G4S?
Yeah. Well, G4S are already been highlighted by human rights group for committing crimes anyway. G4S used to run a lot of the prisons in
the youth detention.
Yeah, youth detention. Yeah, and I know they were already, I mean, you know, they have to do all sorts G4S, but no, they've already been exposed as being a pretty awful company. But with the spy cops, what has happened is that they are actually legally able to do this. So say for instance, so to put this into context, right? Say for instance, you call a general strike because the government is screwing you over. So you call a general strike. The police could open fire on you because it would be considered both would have a negative impact on
the economy
and possibly public disorder. And undercover police could kill you, and there's nothing that you could. So your family couldn't take them to court because the law is accepted that.
See, I understand, like there's, like the FBI and the
Yeah.
MI5 and all that shit and shady stuff goes on. Where the fuck did rape come into that?
Or paedophilia.
Or pedophilia?
Yeah. So you could have somebody rape a child and undercover and say they had to do it in order to be part of the gang, the paedophile ring.
And they would never be
And they would never be held to account for it.
Or rape a woman.
Or murder a woman or anything. And if you look at, so there was a study came out, when was it, last year, I think, 2020, it came out, where I can't remember how many groups it was, but it was like it ran into the hundreds of groups that were under surveillance. 3 were far-right groups.
Right.
The rest of them were environmental groups, human rights groups, all legal groups that were open with their activities.
The deemed enemies of the state.
Yeah, so they were infiltrated by the police. Human rights groups, so even the PSC.
Right.
So you have, and this is the thing, so they went under it, and these were police who had relationships with women, had children with them, and then just disappeared. So there was a big thing on this. And this is what's frightening about spy cops. And that's one of the reasons why they think they pushed it forward quickly, was because obviously some of those women were asking for compensation. So they brought it in before it went to court.
So this has been passed now?
It's been passed,
so it's basically
it got passed. So, and this is when people say about Starmer and the Labour, he was a human rights lawyer. Although if you look at, he was always questionable because he pushed for the arrest of Assange. If you look at him, and the Brazilian guy that got killed. Do you remember?
Got shot in a tube.
Yeah. So he stopped the prosecution of the police of that. So you already had a questionable background, which is why any real socialist who supported him, if you knew anything about his history, what did you expect was going to happen?
Yeah.
However, he whipped his members when it was through the lower houses. He whipped them into abstaining. A few obviously went against that abstention and lost their positions within the shadow cabinet for that.
Again, it just keeps going back to the same thing. It keeps going back to them controlling the narrative, walking us into a totalitarian state, a militarised police, and no one sees a problem with this. No one's saying anything, right or left.
Well, I think lots of left-wing groups have come out, and human rights groups certainly have. Liberals, not so much, and that's why I keep saying to you, it's liberals that are the issue.
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at like what Starmer did, obviously the Tories were going to do that. It's what they do, and particularly now the Tories have gone obviously far right, whereas you used to have under, you would say, the good old days, David Cameron and Theresa May. They were kind of more your old school Tories. Now we've got a different, it's morphed into something much more
It's concerning. A different animal.
Absolutely. You've got Priti Patel, and Dominic Raab, and you look at them, they're very questionable if you look at their ethics and their backgrounds.
Well, anyone who supported that bill, every single person who supported that bill or didn't say anything about it, they're fucked.
Well, this is what I say, if you go back to what I was saying about international law, when you make international law irrelevant, it creeps in. So this is what you have now. So obviously, so it goes through our House of Commons, and then it goes to the House of Lords, which is the final place that it gets passed before it comes into our legislation. So the House of Lords, which is basically just their mates, that's who ends up in the House of Lords. That's why it's totally undemocratic. And again, Labour. So Shami Chakrabarti, who is a human rights, she used to work for Liberty. So if you watch Official Secrets with Keira Knightley, which was about Iraq,
right?
The Iraq thing, when they were told to blackmail, listen in and find things to blackmail the members of the UN. Shami Chakrabarti actually features in that. Because she was one of the lawyers in that case. So she's known as she's got a lot of credentials, she's got a history of standing up really for human rights and stuff like that. So she tried to put an amendment in that would mean that there were some checks and balances within the spy cops law. Labour whipped the Labour Lords into voting against the amendments.
So even to have checks and balances on rape, pedophilia and murder was put down?
Yeah.
So now basically undercover cops can do whatever the fuck they want?
Yeah, they can do whatever they like. And not just remember, this is not just for national security anymore.
This is anything that hurts the economy.
This is to prevent public disorder or if it would harm the economy. Now, what does that even mean? It's very abstract language, isn't it? Harm the economy. What does that mean?
So that could mean anything. That could be interpreted for literally anything. That could mean buying Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because it's not the economy. You're buying outside of the economy.
Or pushing for living wage.
Yeah. Or like you say, organise and saying, I want to,
Yeah, a strike.
And why isn't this...
Or XR going out on the streets now.
Why isn't this all over the front page?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, if you look at where we are in terms of press freedom, we're massively down. You know, whereas like the BBC, for instance, was held up as a, you know...
Yeah, the pioneer of like the British,
Exactly, and held up as like really good reporting, you know, and...
The highest standard in the world.
Yeah, the highest standard, all the rest of it,
shit.
and a lot of trust in that, although unfortunately people still do have a lot of trust, you know, especially the older generation in the BBC. But the thing is, in terms of press freedoms, we're well down the thing. I mean, look, we imprisoned, you know, Julian Assange, an investigative journalist that revealed war crimes.
I seen a thing the other day that made me piss myself because it summed it up beautifully, where you had Julian Assange that basically just said, you know, like, I released this to the public and, you know, what he did. And then you had Mark Zuckerberg underneath saying, I done the exact same thing, walked away with billions. He got jail.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. There's no difference. Do you know what I mean?
And he was revealing crimes, whereas, to be fair, Mark Zuckerberg allowed the hacking of people's timelines to make them vote in a particular way because he made billions from it. Yeah.
That's the one that got me the most when you first sent me that Spy Cops thing. That got me the most because that's, like I say, it's so broad.
Yeah.
You could interpret that in any way that you want.
I could be raped and murdered.
By a cop.
By a cop.
The person who's meant to be...
Because of PSC, because I stand up for human rights.
But the person, this is the irony here, the person who you paid the fucking wages to protect you could rape and kill you.
And my family could do nothing.
Yeah. No consequences for him.
No consequences.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And that's what's terrifying. And if people can't see that there's a problem with that, and if people... And this is why when people say about, like, the politicians, I think we have to go back to grassroots. Because don't tell me that Labour's on my side. Where is Labour on my side? Yeah. And just because what they do, flag shagging now, because he's getting out the union flag for all his things. Yeah. That's not about... People aren't stupid. You're not protecting us.
I know this might sound off, you know, a little bit, but would Spy Cops ever come here? To Jersey?
Well, there's no reason to think it wouldn't.
We amend our laws based on the UK.
On them. Yeah, well, potentially, obviously, with anything, you know, I mean... We always tend to be a little bit behind UK, but we catch up. It's difficult to know what would happen here. I mean, to be fair, we're still some civilised enough society that perhaps that would still be considered not right, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't use aspects of it. Yeah. And that's the thing. So potentially, of course, like with any of the laws, you know, the fact that they brought the IHRA here, even though we'd said no.
But that's insane. To even the fact that we just went through that. Yeah. That's fucking insane. Yeah. And the fact that we're now saying, oh, maybe they could, maybe they couldn't, maybe they could adopt some aspects. I'd say live on camera now. If they do, I'll organise the people going in the streets. Because you can't, I don't understand why that's been buried, why people aren't in the streets now, and especially with COVID. Because they brush that through. Yeah. When everyone's focus is over there,
of course.
They put through one of the most draconian, sick... rape and paedophilia is actually written in the bill. That's the insanity part, and no one's saying anything.
Well, the media won't cover it because our media is owned by billionaires. I think it's something like 85% of our media is owned by 5 billionaires.
And this is why people believe that we're run by rich paedophiles. You literally wrote it into law to legalise it.
Yeah, and that's why you can see. And this is the thing, is, you know, like, and that's what's really, really concerning because, yeah, I mean, people, and this is why people don't have trust. When people don't trust the government, and they quite rightly shouldn't trust the government at the minute, but it allows all sorts of things to happen and concerns. And that's where conspiracy theories, although obviously some conspiracies will be true, because we know historically that they are. But what it means is that it lends itself to conspiracies about all sorts of things that may not be right, because you don't know there's no stable ground anymore. It's moving. You don't know. How do you check these things? And that's what's so concerning, is there's no trust. And when there's no trust, there's fear. When there's fear, people don't think or see, you know, they don't react properly because you're in fight or flight mode, aren't you, when you're in fear?
I think it's part of a... I don't care if it's seen as a conspiracy. That itself, if you'd have told me that, say, 2 years ago, say they're going to implement a bill that means that undercover police can rape, kill, and, you know, fuck with children, abuse and whatever, they won't face consequences. The family won't get anything whatsoever in you know, justice.
Get no justice.
I'd have turned around and gone, you're nuts, that's a conspiracy. But lo and behold, here we are. It's about to go through the House of Lords.
It's gone through the House of Lords.
It's gone through that. It's been passed.
Yeah.
With no amendments, no checks and balances, nothing. And yet, not one conspiracy theorist is talking about it. Not one paper is covering it. No one over here said anything about it. What the fuck? That's where, that's the problem, and like you say, that gives breath. Because if something so outlandish can go on, what else are they doing? They've just done it in front of you. Do you know what I mean? So that gives breath to every single conspiracy theory out there.
Of course.
We're run by rich, horrible, paedophilic fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
You've put it in writing. Like, that to me is so far-fetched, it's hard to get my head around.
And that's what's frightening. And I haven't even seen any of our progressive politicians highlight this
nothing
as an issue.
Not
that I've seen. I'm not saying they haven't, but I've certainly not seen anything.
I haven't seen this even debated on, you know, like, left-leaning pages.
No, there is. There's been loads of... So your actual left-wing media...
local.
Oh, like, local. Yeah. No. I mean, your actual left-wing thing, so like the Canary... oh, crumbs, I always forget what it's called. So you've got the Canary, you've got Double Down News, you have, you know, there's a number, declassified, I think it is, and you've got Byline and the Grey Zone, stuff like that. So they have highlighted it. I mean, Grey Zone not, because I think that's American. But yeah, so they have kind of highlighted it. And if you go on Twitter, there was an awful lot. So lots of people were covering it, but none of the mainstream media picked it up.
Yeah. None
of it. You know, there's been absolutely nothing. And that's what's so frightening about this.
But that's further than what David Icke went. David Icke said, you know, like, what did he say? You know, we're run by lizard people. They're going to microchip you. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. Whatever the fuck he said, right? That's worse. They've gone further than David Icke could ever fucking imagine.
Yeah.
We're literally living in a place now where, again, I have to shout from the rooftops about stuff like that because you're talking about rape and pedophilia.
Yeah.
Being illegal. For,
basically.
You know, for
all intents and purposes.
For the people that we pay our taxes to protect us.
And that's the thing, and that's why, you know, obviously people often say defund the police, because actually they've broken a social contract. And actually the government's broken a social contract with us, because the idea of the government is basically to protect us generally and make sure that, you know, there's sufficient infrastructure and all the rest in place. You know, that's the contracts you have with your government, but they've broken that.
Anyone who's anywhere near that, or didn't say anything about it, is, to me, guilty.
Yeah. And I would agree with you, because it's so dangerous. And that's why when people say they can still support Labour, what are you talking about? How can you support someone, a party that is just, not only is inherently racist against the working classes, doesn't, you know, he's spoken out against unions, not only that, but has also allowed a law to be passed that means our most basic rights are no longer protected.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, and I said to Carl, it will be 7 years ago now, that my concern was fascism was coming. And people kept saying, oh no, you're being dramatic or you're being negative.
It's fucking hell.
Exactly, and that's the point, is because if you don't recognise the signs, it will arrive at your door. You'll say, how did this happen? Well, I was banging on about it, as others were, because the thing is, they don't, you know, I can't remember who it was that said it, somebody much more intelligent and high profile than me, that said something, is that Nazis, you know, fascists don't turn up on your door in a uniform and, you know, goose stepping through your town. That's not how they do. They don't arrive like that. It's little by little, because you move, it's called, you know, Overton's window, which is what is acceptable politically.
Yeah, you move the goalposts.
You move it, so you shift it. So what they do is they put ideas out there and see how people respond and whether they're ready for something. And then you keep moving it and shifting it and shifting it. And that's where we are, where people are accepting of this. Again, now, to say that that's wrong is considered that you're an enemy of the state.
Well, that's a totalitarian tiptoe. Yeah. You don't go from 1 to 4. You go, you know... Again, that one fucked me over, because that as soon as you sent it to me and I started reading about it, I think I put it up once somewhere just to gauge sort of a reaction. And I think it's so fucked up that people went, "Now, what are you on about? That wouldn't happen."
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, read it. Like, even like in personal messages and stuff, I sent it to a load of friends. I was like, read the fucking thing. And I was like, it's there. But
people don't think it can happen to us. Because
so
they're like, oh, well, we're democracy, or we've
Yeah.
got these rights, or we've got... Because they forget that actually how fragile those rights are.
You have to fight for them.
Yeah. And keep fighting
Yeah,
for them.
every
They're
day,
not,
yeah.
It's not like because you fought them for them once, it's a done deal and that's it.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Like you said, and there's a strange bridge here while we're talking about spy cops. Because as abhorrent as that is and how fucked up that is, that's literally what ISIS is going through every day, in a sense, with his human rights.
Yeah.
With, like how he's been treated, and we've already gone over what he stands for and, how he actually achieves what he does. What's actually currently, just to shift gears a little bit, what's currently happening with Issa?
Okay, so obviously he received this conviction for 6 charges on the... So he was... I mean, this has been going on for over a decade.
Right.
And he was indicted on 18 charges. He's been convicted on the 6th of January of 6. And, 3 of the charges relate to protesting without a permit.
Right.
So if you want to get some context, it's like us thinking, us going to our occupiers during our occupation and saying, can we have a permit to protest you, please?
Yeah.
It's totally unreasonable. 2 of the counts were obstructing soldiers by
being
attending
there.
a protest, by being there. Yeah. And 1 was assault, which was something in 2010, which actually had been shut down, and they brought back up, even though it had been shut down the first time. And actually, it was Issa that got carried away on a stretcher. So he was convicted, and then at the beginning of this week, we were told he was going to be sentenced. The 8th of February.
Yeah.
So he went to court, and that's why we had the Twitter storm, which I organised with a couple of friends. Which were great, by the way. We got 11,700 tweets out in that.
Yeah, I've got about 9. I don't even know what I've got on. I don't use Twitter.
No, but you did, and I was so proud of you. So thank you. So we did, and obviously the UN released a statement. So there was all this. Diplomats had turned up like they did because I went to court with Issa for one of the trials when I was actually in Hebron, and you just realise it's just total nonsense. That was when remember I said to you that they made me take my bra off and stuff just to humiliate me. Oh. Yeah. Did I never tell you this?
No.
So when I went to court to support Issa, I was the only one coming in from the West Bank.
Right.
The others had come, Miko and some friends and some diplomats had come in from the other side, from the Israeli side. It was off a military prison. Even though they put you through, you have to take everything out your pockets. You don't have your bag. You're not allowed your phone. You're not allowed anything. You have to take out your chewing gum. They make you go through an X-ray machine and this, that, and the other. In spite of that, and there was nothing on me. There could be nothing on me.
Yeah.
I got taken into a room and they made me take my bra off just to humiliate me.
Yeah.
And I remember it was a female soldier, thankfully, and I just looked at her straight in the eyes because I thought, you know what, this is your shame, it's not my shame.
Yeah.
So Israel's got maybe a picture of my boob somewhere.
However, because I didn't actually know. So for Issa, this has been going on for a decade.
Yeah.
I thought it was new charges that had just trumped up recently.
Yeah, no, these have been going on for...
Right.
So he's been going in and out and been arrested and this, that and the other. So when what was interesting was the second time I went to the court, and you just realise it's a total kangaroo court.
Yeah.
I've been before, and I actually found it quite traumatic. Like the first time I went wasn't with Issa, it was with Military Court Watch, which is a brilliant
because it's a military
NGO. Yeah,
court,
it's a military court. And it's why, again, another example of apartheid, because settlers who commit crimes within there, who very rarely ever get held accountable for anything, they are tried under civilian courts.
Yeah.
But Palestinians are under military court, and the conviction rate is 99.74%.
Which proves apartheid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Aside from the Jewish only roads and the the different laws and the fact that you have no rights or whatever, so that's a situation. But when you're there, so the judge of the military court is a settler himself and a soldier. So he's like I can't remember what his position is, but high ranking. So
heavily
soldier.
convicted on top of being heavily conflicted. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there is no justice within the Israeli military court system. And it was just horrendous observing kind of what happens, because it didn't matter what Issa said, and there was stuff proving that what they were trying to say was total lies, but there was evidence to, certain things they claimed that couldn't have been the case, but it didn't matter. So anyway, so when he, so after he got convicted in January, then obviously we had our Twitter storm in February, he was due to have his sentence. Mm-hmm. And what happened was, which is there's a kind of a partial win because there'd been so much focus on it because the UN released a statement. It's Amnesty. We managed to get so many people involved and sort of highlighting the situation, not our progressive politicians, but others. They said that they were going to send him the full details of his sentence in the next few weeks. I think by May that he will get them. But what the prosecutors asked for was the maximum time period for a suspended sentence. So what's been agreed is a suspended sentence and a fine. We don't know how much that fine is, but obviously we don't know what the terms and conditions of that suspended sentence is. The likelihood is it will be anything to try and stop his activism. So for instance, if you turn up at a protest, if you do an Open Shoe Harder Street campaign, which is an annual campaign that takes place, if he posts something against Israeli apartheid or something like that, then he would be violating, and therefore they can put him straight into prison. That's what they're dangling over him is, you've got a suspended sentence, we've not put you in prison today. I think what they're waiting for is people to be distracted and focused, go elsewhere. They're stalling so that they can do that. So this is why the pressure needs to keep being
it's just not one Twitter storm, it's keeping it at the forefront.
It's a concerted effort over a period of time. And, in terms of Issa, who I said to you is a good friend of mine, what he said to me, he's very, I suppose he's got a really sort of fatalistic view of it and the way that he just accepts that this is how it is. But he said it's not just about him. He wants the spotlight shone on the whole situation, because he says, obviously it's not just him being imprisoned or a threat of being put in prison or being beaten. This isn't a regular thing. What helps him to some degree is that he's high profile because of the work that he's done, because of the network he's been able to build. It means, and that's what he's doing, he's using his platform in order to try and support everybody and highlight the whole situation to everyone in the right way. And I think, and he's incredible, like Issa, he was so supportive when I was there, and just a really decent sort, but also works hard to empower women. He set up women's groups and stuff and tried to encourage women to take sort of leadership roles and stuff like that. He is and
he's totally anti-violent as well. I think that's what
because he's done lots of study into Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement, and he decided to take up those practices because he feels that in the long run that non-violence is a way forward, because it allows you to hold the moral high ground.
Well, under them circumstances, it always has been.
Which is incredible, isn't it? Because, if somebody's beating you up in this, that and the other, how many of us would probably go, you know what, I'm coming for you?
And he still doesn't raise a hand.
No, he doesn't. And that's the thing, he keeps going. And he's, he's a pillar of his community. He's a strong character, which you'd have to be to manage, because how else would you manage within that situation?
It's hell on earth. How'd you be an angel in fucking hell? Do you know what I mean? It's I obviously tip my hat to him in every way, because I could never, in this life and the next, I couldn't do that. But when I read his story, I thought, fucking hell. I thought, is this another guy, are there another 100,000 of... There is only really one Issa. And reading his work, just sort of brushing over it, you can see, the character of the man.
Yeah.
And what is it, 18 charges?
Yeah, so it was 18... So he had 18 charges, but he was indicted on 18, but he got convicted of 6.
Right, and if I understand correctly, the fine can be anything.
Yeah.
It can be anything up to...
Well, whatever,
20 trillion fucking make up, And then, like you say, after that, it's also, it could be a house arrest, it could be a banning him from certain events, it could be a banning him from saying stuff, it could be... So as bad as jail, essentially, for someone like him.
Yeah, absolutely. The idea is to stop him, and to stop it's to send a message to all activists that we will come for you, and we are there to stop you down. The Israelis... government will not accept any resistance to their occupation and apartheid. And that's the thing, it's apartheid. If you look under Rome statute definition of apartheid, it is clearly apartheid. And I think that, and that's the thing, is that it is to try and stop any form of resistance at all. And, and that's the thing that Issa said, it's basically they won't tolerate any criticism of what they do. And obviously these charges have been labelled as politically motivated by Amnesty, UN there's obviously issued their statements on it, you know, saying that Israel has got to cease immediately what it is doing, is targeting of human rights defenders.
Do you think there's enough people looking at it to get him? I say get him off, but I don't know what that would be.
He won't get off. I think the fact that he hasn't been put straight into prison shows that there's still a little bit concern about their image,
right?
Which is good. It's not. I say it's a partial win, because normally he would already be banged up, and that would be that. So the fact that they haven't put him in, but there isn't enough focus, and there isn't enough people willing still yet to stand up and say this is wrong. This is totally out of order. If this was Russia, like you look at what's happened with what's his name, Navalny, who isn't a good man, by the way.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Everybody jumps on the bandwagon because Russia's the big enemy. I don't like Putin. But come on. Yeah. If it was China, like people are up in arms about what, you know, China's doing to Muslims over there, which is wrong. But actually, this is not about, we know it's not about human rights, because when Israel commits its crimes, you'll find when Saudi Arabia, when a man, you know, a journalist goes into a Saudi Arabian embassy and is chopped up, because you don't do anything because he's your ally. Yeah. So don't tell me you're interested in human rights.
That's the thing, this is what I'm saying. You can't have this thing where you pick and choose, like you said before, because it will always spill over. It will always come. If you turn around and say that, you know, people in Nairobi, do you know what I mean, deserve to be chopped up in the street, if you then say that people in South America deserve the same, irrelevant of who they are, where they are, what coloured skin they have, or what religion they are, any of that, the moment you allow it to happen,
it undermines all of our rights.
Yeah, or not talk about it, or, you know, that means that you're a part of it. And if you have any position of power whatsoever, it makes you even worse.
Yeah, because it's a sin of omission, isn't it? Yeah, you're complicit because you didn't stand up.
Like you say, it's bandwagon jumping. Yeah. Russia, Putin's an easy target because you know fine well you're not going to do fuck all to him, and the guy you said that is getting locked up, the president of Brazil or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? When it's about this or that, or even Trump. Do you know what I mean? Now I think the media. What I find funniest about now is the media does not have a fucking clue what to do because they prop Biden up so much. Yeah. Now.
And Biden's awful.
He's a twat. Do you know what I mean? But
and that's the thing I was going to say. I didn't like Trump, but Biden is awful. He's just a politer version of awful.
Again,
he's just more of the same. And this is the thing. They didn't in the American elections. They didn't have anyone to vote for. They had someone to vote against.
That's it.
And that's it.
That was simple. That's it. So again. It's the exact same thing. Like it's just bandwagon jumping, and like I said when you said about China and the way they're treating Muslims and stuff, and I had an argument with someone, and they said, "Yeah, but look what they've done for poverty," and you're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Yeah. Like they lifted 1 billion people out of poverty, whatever the number was, I can't remember, but that's not the conversation. Yeah. I'm showing you videos of Muslims lined up on their way to concentration camps to probably be whatever the fuck. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And your response to that on a liberal page, I'm making the differentiation between liberal and left.
Thank you.
On a liberal page, your answer to that is, but they lifted 1 million people out or 1 billion people out of poverty or whatever the fuck it is. It's again.
One doesn't offset the other.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I'm not the only person who does this. I'm not the only person who collaborates himself and goes, well, I'm not with either side. Therefore, I can say what I want about anyone. Yeah. I think 90% of people are like me. Do you know what I mean? Well, prove that because most people don't fucking vote. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And we see the hypocrisy, we see the stuff that you just said there, where it is bandwagon jumping. Yeah. That's all it is. It's popular now, so I'll jump up, I'll say the lines that everyone's saying, do you know what I mean? And then I can, go back to my cave for a fucking minute and be safe in the knowledge that all the young progressives will sit there and go, like, he's the guy, virtue signaler. That's all it is now. There's no actual action, there's no actual, no one's putting their life on the line, no one's actually putting their reputation or anything else on the line. They're just saying the right stuff.
And those who do that are vilified, which is why they destroyed Jeremy Corbyn,
But then this is the thing.
And Bernie Sanders, actually.
Bernie. Yeah. But what a fucking weird world to live in. Yeah. What a strange way. But where the fuck do we go from here, though? That's the strangest part. Yeah. That's the scary part now, because, like I say, I'm not saying that everyone has to be an advocate. I'm not saying that everyone has to be a fucking human rights activist. There's too much going on. Selfishly, I say this, but it's true. There's too much going on in the world for you to care about everything as much as what you claim to. But at the same time, at least if you're honest and you're broad about it and say, well, if this happened there, it shouldn't happen there. Yeah. Simple. So you alleviate the context of religion, it's basically just, all I'm explaining is human rights, that's it. We're all fucking human.
Exactly.
But if you can't do that, you're nothing. You shouldn't be part of anything, any conversation. You shouldn't definitely ever hold a position of power. Because again, like I said before, what happens when it's my rights?
Yeah.
Are you going to be silent? Are you going to be bought? Can you be bought? This is the thing. I read a while ago that someone, I don't know if it was Mezek or Monty, someone said he can't be corrupted. You have been.
Well, he has been, but all of us are at risk.
Anything that can be corrupted is already corrupted. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But then there's certain things that you don't shift on. Again, whether it costs you your career or it costs you anything, you don't shift on certain things like that.
No, I think there's certain things, you have to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and go, actually, when chips were down, did I do the right thing? And this is why when people say to me, French resistance, I would have done this. I'm like, I know whether you would have done something according to what you're doing now. Yeah. Because we are in this situation. We're in, the alarm bells are ringing. We're in the 30s, I would say, of where Europe was in the 20s to 30s. We're in the same position. And we're taking those steps towards, I think a total totalitarian state. I think and not just here, but as a world government.
If you couple the oncoming, recession from COVID, which has been apparently going to make the 1920s look like a fucking holiday camp. If you take that, along with the Spy Cops bill, and other things that are going on and stuff like that, when people, like say, the chips are going to be down, it's not going to end well. And people need to not pick a side, because I don't have one. I just know that anyone that comes near me or my family is going to fucking die a horrible death. But even with that, at least I have a compass where I can stand there and say, well, that there is my,
that's your line.
That's my line. Do you know what I mean? Don't go near that line. You'll be fine. You'll be okay. Do you know what I mean? I've always said, don't go near my speech. Don't try and tell me what I can and can't say, because you'll lose. Do you know what I mean? Most people have. It's almost like we're ushering ourselves into this fucking nightmare.
Yeah, we're allowing it. We're allowing it to happen. We're blind,
But on some levels, we're doing it ourselves. We're literally telling people what they can say, what they can't say, how they can say it. But we're
flying the flags for this change, and that's what's frightening, because people don't see it.
Yeah, people don't see the big picture. There's no foresight. There's no. It's just strange. Some people are actually asking for this. I've had people turn around to me online and say. About China and stuff and being progressive, and you're like, do you know how they treat their people? Yeah. Like, not even just Muslims, just their people. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then the economy, if that's the argument back, you've just told me everything I need to know about your character. That means it's money over people. Yeah. Because you can lift 70 billion people out of poverty. But if you had to kill however many, because you didn't kill them to get there, you've done that because you're a prick or I just don't see it. I can't see how people don't see it, and I do. And you do, and only a few other people do.
I think that I think a lot of people are so concerned with their own personal affairs, they don't even think about it, especially in Jersey, actually. People are...
we're like a weird corner of the world.
Yeah, absolutely, totally politically disengaged. But I think that it's a huge issue, isn't it? I think that people are so... I think we've been dumbed down a lot as a society as well. People have been, if you look back to the Roman gladiatorial games, which is the Hunger Games, panem, which is bread, bread and entertainment. Actually, we're in the same thing, aren't we? Because people don't know they're enslaved.
Give them arenas.
Give them
arenas.
Yeah, so we've got Love Island and all this other stuff. And it's not to judge people who watch it.
And our phones.
But the point is, that it's dumbed down. Yeah, the fact, you're dumbed down with all these things. So you're not thinking. Every minute in your day is filled with something. And for others, it is just trying to survive. Yeah. Trying to make sure you've got enough just to cover your rent and put food in your stomach. And this is the issue. So whilst people are so distracted with these things, I think sometimes they just don't have the headspace. And I think that's what it is, because most people would agree if they knew that it's wrong. Yeah. And I think that it's frightening, because we are blindly walking into a future that we fought to stop.
Yeah, many years ago. And not only that, we're walking into a future that is not going to benefit anyone. No. Who wins? Yeah. Especially as we're facing environmental breakdown. Who wins from any of this? I don't care what gated community you live in. Yeah, we're all, when climate, breakdown and environmental breakdown happens, you won't be able to buy yourself out of that. No.
You know?
Well, unless you're Elon Musk and you got a fucking rocket to Mars.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, but do we want to live on Mars at the minute?
I would actually, after reviewing this show quickly in my head, I would. No, honestly, it's the best thing about talking to you is, you know, you give me something to think about, but you put it at the forefront. And again, you're not someone who can be bought, and you're not someone who can waver. Again, we don't agree on everything.
No, but that's okay.
But 9 times out of 10, I'm not trying to change your mind.
No.
I don't care. Do you know what I mean? And it's the differences that, you know, make us like each other anyway and get along a bit more. Do you know what I mean? But I think, like you say, we have been dumbed down. Anyone anywhere near that spy cops thing, I don't even want to say, death penalty, quite simply. But the fact that, like you said before, again, I wouldn't know because I don't follow who's progressive and who's not. I wouldn't even know who's progressive. I know Sam is because he's a socialist, but that's about it.
I would say Sam's very, very soft socialist.
But again, I don't, you know...
And it's not a thing, it's just that...
I don't attribute myself to anything because I can see problems in both ideologies. There's definitely a grey area that needs exploring because the whole right-left thing is it's played out. I think
this is the thing, and actually they're not helpful terms, really.
No, it's not, but at the same time, it just saves time. Do you know what I mean? Just instead of going, well, you're left to centre, right to centre, and then you're 3 fucking quarters over there, it just saves time to go look, the right, the left. But they're 2 wings of the same bird when you scratch the surface, because there's not a massive difference. One's got a smile and one doesn't. When at the political level, not at the not with the people. I just think that, you know, we literally... I think that you summed it up before where you said that when you allow it to happen in places like Palestine, don't be surprised, like the fucking bill that just got signed, when it comes knocking on your door.
Yeah, exactly.
Because subconsciously, I think the people in power know that if you allow it over there, it won't be too much to push you to let it...
That's the thing, it dilutes the whole thing and what's acceptable.
Yeah. And then again, you might see it on the news and stuff, and because that's far away and, you know, they're a different religion or whatever, you know, and it seems far away, but then it slowly comes in. Again, I don't know, but I think coupled with what's going to happen, again, like the recession and the job loss and everything else like that, and especially if they're pushing these sort of bills through.
You've got the automation of more and more jobs.
Yeah, and people can't work. Simple as that. I mean, I don't know. When you do a show like this, you don't actually know how the fuck you get out of it unless you look at grassroots and you say it's a grassroots thing. We either stand together, stop the bickering and the stupid shit and the, you know, like the microaggressions and the silencing each other, sit down, fucking listen. We all agree on the same thing. We want certain things in life. We want to be happy, healthy, a decent wage and a decent life. Do you know what I mean? That's it.
It doesn't change.
If after that you go off and you vote for some twat compared to the other twat, who cares? Just keep them 4 fundamentals at the forefront, and then maybe you might be able to organise and get somewhere.
You can build on. So it's finding the stuff that you
can build on something that's tangible, something that you know where morality takes the front and centre as opposed to ideology, which again
I mean,
is flawed.
Otherwise it becomes like football teams, which is just a nonsense anyway.
Bollocks,
I'm not saying you're fine, great if you support your team. It's not, but that's what it becomes is when things become almost like party loyalty or ideology loyalty over
identity politics.
And I think identity politics has destroyed us. You know, and I think we need to get back to understanding that this is a class war. We unite over class war and realise that lots of these other things are symptoms of that class war because the ruling class for millennia have used divide and conquer. Why are we so stupid to keep allowing them to do that to us? Because whilst we're screaming at each other, because, you know, even people will like, I had a friend of mine who, you know, I don't know even if I'm her friend anymore, because I disagreed with her on something. That's the point. I can disagree with you, and actually the point I was trying to make her is stop labelling people because it's not helping. You need to have the conversation and not expect, because you've decided this is the way things are, whether I agree with you or don't agree with you, that all of a sudden, because people haven't caught up with you yet, that suddenly that it means that they're this. It's just not reasonable.
It's a lazy way of debate, but it's more importantly a lazy way of living, because then that means that you've written off.
Well, you've alienated loads of people who could be your potential allies, and this is a problem.
But here's the thing, because I wind up the left all the time. I find it liberals all the time. I find it fucking hysterical, because they're usually the people who bite, first off. Second off, it's the hypocrisy that's always got me, and it always will.
Yeah.
I can't leave that alone. It's one of them annoying things. So, whereas you can turn around to Boris Johnson and call him a fat, useless twat. You can turn around to the right and say, but it's one of them. The hypocrisy is, and when they get offended when you point out the hypocrisy and start assassinating your character, that to me is fucking hysterical. But again, I'm coming from a place of comedy. I've never taken anything serious in that sort of thing. But I do think it is important to say, like I said before, if given everything that we've spoken about, if there's not something tangible that binds us together over the next year, this isn't 5 years down the road. This is
screwed.
Yeah. We're all fucked.
Yeah.
Like, all of us are fucked. That's not me attributing to any ideology, or anything else. That's me saying to every single person that we all breathe, we all do the same things. You know what I mean? When you scratch the surface, we all want the same things. If we don't get there, and we don't alleviate these...
And don't find a way forwards that most of us...
People,
and actually almost forgetting the ruling classes, because it has to be from us.
Yeah, remember as well, these people would not piss on you if you're on fire.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. They don't give a fuck about you. Do you know what I mean? So, like, unless we start with that, work your way up, we're screwed. But hopefully I'm not being too pessimistic there. Like, do you know what I mean?
No, I think you're right. And this is the thing is, I mean, I read an article, I think it was last year, maybe 2019 or possibly, that said because of environmental breakdown, society will collapse within 10 years because it cannot continue down this road.
Yeah.
Because things are happening so quickly, and because you've got feedback loops and all the rest of it, but also because capitalism as it is failing.
Yeah.
Because whilst you try and make things cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, you know,
it's a deflation.
Yeah, exactly. And if people don't have the wages to buy anymore, what? Then
you end up like what was it Africa, when they had like $1 billion notes they had to print to go and buy a loaf of bread?
Yeah, probably.
That's the definition of inflation.
Yeah.
They borrow more money, then your money's not worth that much next year.
Exactly. So, but also people don't have the jobs and don't have the money to spend. We built an economy that requires people to consume and spend. Yeah. If they don't have money to consume and spend, then that doesn't work.
But also,
sorry, go on.
Where does the jobs go for the people who make the stuff that you want to buy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also because you can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. It mathematically it doesn't work.
Yeah, that is why I'm actually going to ask you to come back on, because I actually wanted to talk about the Venus Project and stuff, but I'm not going to end up being able
today.
to. But I do want to get you back on to talk about them things, because we spoke before about it, the Venus Project, sustainable growth and stuff like that, and what's it called? Universal income.
Yeah, universal income.
And
which is
a couple more things, stuff that's outside of what we spoke about today.
And it also gives you a way forward of going, this is actually something we can do. This is something we can... Because I also think things can't change without people imagining that you could have an alternative.
If you inject the idea, then, plant the seed and let it grow. Do you know what I mean? I definitely want you back on for that.
Thank you.
But it's been an absolute pleasure, because like I say, you're not an armchair activist. You are actually out there, and I really respect you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I just guess what I would encourage people to do is actually just to research stuff. Obviously support Issa. It's really important for me. And not be scared of what labels people apply to you. Like I've always said this. In fact, I wrote an article, I don't know if you saw it, I was asked to for Counterfire. It was in a response to a video I made, and it's called Left Gloves Off, Time to Fight.
Yeah, I did that, yeah.
So it's about, the labels don't mean anything. You can get rid of the labels in time, work out what your values are and stick to those values, stand up for them. No matter what the consequence.
Yeah.
Because so what? Because if we look to those in the past, they were vindicated in time.
Yeah.
And actually labels only have power if you accept.
Well, if someone turns around and says, I'm too scared to say whatever because they might call me racist or whatever they're tools to be used.
Yeah.
And they're usually tools by, let's be honest, upper middle class liberals or people in power. I'm not racist, therefore I don't give a fuck if someone calls me racist. Do you know what I mean? I'm not homophobic, therefore I don't give a fuck. But if I stumbled for a minute and went, oh, I don't want to go down that road because I might have that label, that's where you're fucked. Yeah. That's where you think, that's where they have control.
Yourself. Exactly. And that's the point. Yeah. And that's the whole. And that's why I referred myself to the compliance unit for anti-Semitism to call out the nonsense it was.
Yeah.
I never got suspended.
Well, that's the thing. But most people, sometimes what they do is that as soon as they get wind that life might get hard.
Yeah.
Because life's hard enough. Let's be honest.
Of course.
So people might sit there and go, they might fully back it, but they need to understand that you can only wait so long to move. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't come, it's not here on your doorstep yet, but it's coming. Do you know what I mean?
So we need to get ourselves
Yeah, so
sorted.
you need to stand there and go, right, this is the basic thing that I want, whether that be under a Bill of Rights or, you know, whatever. But it has to be by us from the ground up. Yeah. It's not going to come from a politician, whether they're progressive or they're not. It won't come from them.
The vehicle is dead, the wheels are off and it's burnt.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's a burnout.
Yeah,
so I think that we have to realise that and realise that we do have the power. Sometimes I think people have become so disempowered and think that they don't have the power, but actually do. If a huge portion of us, even 20% of us went, actually we're not taking this
If 20% of people stood there and said, non-compliance.
Yeah.
So for this 12 months, I won't pay my tax, I won't do this, and I won't do that, and I won't sign up to your fucking jobs either. Just non-compliance. Yeah. Watch what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
That's only 20% of any place, including Jersey. Even I'd push it to 15. Easily, if you turn around and said, just non-compliance. I'm not governed by you, I'm not governed by your laws, and stood together. That's the main thing, is standing together. Because there is strength in numbers, there is, you know, like, a way, and not only that, you empower each other as you go.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need a leader. Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be one, neither are you.
No,
do you know what I mean?
No.
You don't need one. You just need to stand under, like I say before, just just a moral compass.
Yeah.
With a few ideas thrown in the bucket, and that's it, done.
And unite under that.
Yeah, and that's it. And then the moment people start talking about shit and differences and, you know, etc., you just turn around and go, that's not part of what we're doing. We'll get there in the end.
Yeah, we can have that debate later once we've made sure that we're not living in a totalitarian state, having to fight each other.
we'll thrash out the intricacies at a later date. Do you know what I mean? But for now, we're just trying to get the basics. Do you know what I mean? The basic human rights that, you know, we deserve. Again, it's crazy, but that's the reason I like talking to people like you, because it puts things in perspective from both your experience in Palestine, which is then obviously mirrored in some way in different places, but now you can sort of see it coming home. Not only with the silence of our friends, as it were, but also with the fact that, you know, not one media outlet, no one said anything about the bills, no one, you know. Yeah, it's not going to end well. But again, thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, nice.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. Lovely to see you as always.
Honestly, it's so when I was reading that when you sent me